UPI reports Republicans in Congress unanimously renominated Wisconsin Representative Paul Ryan as Speaker of the House for another 2 years on Tuesday. A revitalized GOP on Capitol Hill made Ryan their official choice for the leadership post, in which he served for a year, taking over for John Boehner in October of 2015. The entire junior chamber will vote on the nomination just after the new year. Ryan ran unopposed and was renominated by unanimous vote on Tuesday. Representative Ryan reinforced his optimism in a press conference on Tuesday, saying, "Welcome to the dawn of a new unified Republican government. This will be a government focused on turning President-elect Trump's victory into real progress for the American people. At the same time, we recognize that the task ahead of us is enormous. If we're going to put our country back on the right track, we have got to be bold and we have to go big." Ryan's interest in maintaining the Speaker's post and propelling Trump's agenda through Congress comes after a campaign in which Ryan did not endorse Trump until June, well after he secured the GOP nomination. Ryan was also critical of Trump for his treatment of a Muslim Gold Star military family presented at the Democratic National Convention, and again after the Access Hollywood audio tape surfaced of Trump making vulgar comments about women from 2005. Cell 411 is a free app for Android and iOS that replaces government-controlled 911. Cell 411 allows you to preset a group of friends or private organization to show up in an emergency. Cell 411 is a nightmare to the state because it proves their so-called services aren't needed. Cell 411, because your friends won't shoot you when you're in trouble. Without the government, who would build the emergency services? You and Cell 411. Get it today at getcell411.com. Reuters reports a measure that would make Denver the first city in the United States to legalize the use of cannabis in venues such as clubs, bars, and restaurants is expected to get enough votes to pass, according to both backers and opponents of the initiative. The announcement comes amid a string of victories for proponents of medical and recreational cannabis use, with voters in California and Massachusetts approving ballot initiatives legalizing recreational use of cannabis last week. The Denver measure will permit private businesses to allow cannabis use by adults in designated areas with certain exceptions. Backers of the initiative said it would make Denver the first city in the country where cannabis enthusiasts can enjoy cannabis socially without fear of arrest. Kevan Kalitbari, a Denver businessman and lead proponent of the measure, said in a statement on Tuesday, "This is a victory for cannabis consumers who, like alcohol consumers, simply want the option to enjoy cannabis in a social setting." While other states have authorized similar plans, Kalitbari said Denver would be the first to actually implement them. He said businesses in the city could start opening their doors to cannabis users as soon as late January. Approval for Denver's initiative was leading in preliminary vote totals from last week's election. While the city's election agency said they would not certify results until next Tuesday, campaigns that supported and opposed the measure both agreed it had passed. This has been FPP Radio News, online at fppradio.com.
Over 60% of employers are now checking online amateur pornography of potential job candidates. Is it fair to base hiring decisions on an applicant's online porn?
Now, this is not fair at all. For instance, if there's a red tube video of my girlfriend slapping me and choking me and riding me, that shouldn't be an indication I'm going to lack leadership in a work situation.
Yeah, but Duncan, it's going to be hard to convince an employer who's masturbating to that video otherwise.
Exactly. My potential employer might see all those videos of my husband tying me up and having his way with me, and then they're going to think that I'm not going to be assertive enough for the job.
I mean, if you don't want to jeopardize the content of your porn, you can always shoot from the eyes down.
Oh, but that's not the same if you cover the eyes. That's where the innocence is.
So am I supposed to leave an orgy just because someone shows up with a camera?
No one's saying you should leave an orgy.
No, right. So
it's more complicated.
So now, if I go to a party, I wear something like this in case that situation comes up again.
I like that. I actually shoot my porn in sepia tone and make it look old-timey, so if people see it, they'll think it's my grandfather and not me.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. You're invited, as always, to join us here on the radio waves. You can bring up anything you want to discuss. Our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. And also, you can Skype into the show. Skype username for you to bring up anything is LRN.FM. Tonight with you in our Keene, New Hampshire studio, it's Ian.
And Darryl.
And lots, of course, of interesting things in the news to discuss. You may take control of the airwaves. We'll be starting out tonight with a question, Darryl, that you had, I guess from some story, about is America too big? I think we would agree that it absolutely is. I mean, I have not read what you're about to share, but yeah, it's definitely too big. But let's hear what this person has to say about it.
Yeah, so it comes from the Libertarian Institute. They write, in the aftermath of the election of Donald Trump as President of the United States, many of us are searching for an explanation for what happened. Why are our politics so diverse? This is not the America I know. This is a worthy question, but I don't think anyone has really nailed it yet. This year, I've heard many political reform suggestions, including some that I support, ranked choice voting, and a process to prevent gerrymandering. These two reforms would tend to make our quotidian politics more moderate and post-fact campaigning a riskier strategy. But I want to focus on something else. I can't shake the idea of we're out of equilibrium in terms of optimal country size. If this idea is correct, then at least some of our problems could be the result of a mismatch between reality and the unexamined assumption that we all have to be in this together.
The word was quotidian that you said earlier?
Yes.
Quotidian, it means daily. What was the context of it again?
These reforms would make our daily politics more daily fit. I don't know why sometimes people just decide to, throw a really big word in there when a normal word
would suffice.
Will do.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like some sort of a brain measuring contest or something like that. The author is trying to show how intelligent and how diverse their vocabulary is, perhaps. There was a talk show host, Lionel. He still does his show, but not on the radio anymore. He does like a YouTube show. And he loves to use big words. It's kind of his thing that he does. And so it is kind of interesting to listen to him, but you've got to keep a dictionary at hand to be able to really kind of know some of the things that he's saying.
Does he have all of the best words?
I don't know about that, but one big word for people who use big words is sesquipedalian. That's one that I remember from listening to Lionel's show. So,
and what does that mean?
A person who uses big words.
Alrighty then.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt. I was just curious as to what quotidian means, so I had to look it up.
Yep. They then get into a part of the article titled The Theory of Optimal Country Size. The classic economics paper on optimal country size is by Alesina and Splore from 1997. They advance a number of theoretical claims in the paper, but in my view, the most important ones are on the relationship between political and economic integration. Suppose that the world is full of trade barriers. Tariffs are high, and maybe also it's just plain expensive to get goods across the ocean, so there's not a lot of international competition. In this situation, there's a huge advantage to political integration. It buys you economic integration. In a world,
when they say political integration, they mean joining some larger country?
Right.
Okay.
So, like tying politics to geography.
Mm-hmm.
So at one time, and I'll boil down what I think he's saying here, at one time it made sense for the United States to span from sea to shining sea. Because then you didn't have to worry about, how do we get all of the stuff from one side of the continent to the other and cross all of these borders? And what about trade with countries from Europe? Well, if it's all one big country from sea to shining sea, then, it kind of makes sense to, you get stuff in from California and then it doesn't cross national barriers getting to New York and vice versa.
Is that what they were thinking when they set up the United States?
Well, initially,
they didn't even have the sea to shining sea thing.
Right.
Then.
That was the whole manifest destiny thing where, some politician said, God told me that it is our manifest destiny to control the entirety of this continent. And then Thomas Jefferson went and bought a huge chunk of land from France, and then we went into empire mode.
So, I don't know what they consider to be a large number of tariffs or high tariffs. We've got tariffs today. There are tariffs all over the world,
right? And
they certainly don't help trade. They definitely hinder it. So, I'm not sure what arbitrary number they're picking as too high of tariffs, but to me, any tariff is too high of a tariff.
So let's continue.
Yeah. Seems to me the bigger countries are not as free. That's just my observation.
In a world of trade barriers, a giant internal free trade area is one of the most valuable public goods that a government can provide. Because many industries feature economies of scale, it's better to live in a big market. If the only way to get a big market is to live in a big country, then megastates have a huge advantage over microstates. On the other hand, if economic integration prevails regardless of political integration, say tariffs are low and shipping is cheap, then political integration does not buy you very much. Many of the other public goods that government provides, law and order, social insurance, etc., don't really benefit from large populations beyond a certain point. If you scale from 1 million people to 100 million people, you aren't really any better off. As a result, if economic integration prevails, the optimal country size is small, maybe even a city-state.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at, was it Liechtenstein, I believe, is the very, very successful, tiny place?
Yeah, Liechtenstein is very small. Luxembourg is very small. Andorra. San Marino. There's several.
Now, I know that like Liechtenstein is not included in the top countries of the world. There's the freedom rankings that we've talked about a lot here on Free Talk Live. And Hong Kong is always number one in those rankings, but as it turns out...
That's the economic freedom ranking.
That's true.
There's the Fraser Institute.
That is also economic freedom of the world.
No. They do the Human Freedom Index.
Okay.
Where they measure social freedoms in addition to economic freedoms. And New Zealand tops that list.
Really? Is this new?
They've been doing this for several years. And every time you mention the Freedom Index that Hong Kong is at the top of, I mention the Human Freedom Index, and you seem to forget it every single time.
Wow. Well, maybe that's because I was thinking about the other Fraser Institute thing, which is the Free the World, freetheworld.com.
Right.
That's different.
No, it's the same Fraser Institute. They have the economic freedom
two different indexes,
and the human freedom. Yes, they have two different indices that they use.
Interesting. And you said New Zealand was number one on social freedoms?
On the human freedom, where you take the social freedoms plus the economic freedoms and do a weighted average.
Ah, interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's more to this article, but I can't get it to come up. It actually links from the Libertarian Institute over to the full article, and I'm having trouble getting the full article pulled up.
We'll see if we can do that here in a moment. What is the Libertarian Institute? Is there a group behind them that it doesn't really ring a bell with me?
They're fairly new, and all I
Ron
really
Paul?
I don't know if Ron Paul's involved, but I know that Scott Horton is.
Okay,
and
Scott Horton from Anti-War Radio.
Right, and pretty much anything that Scott Horton is involved with is going to be good.
For sure. All right, so we're going to learn more about this as the show goes on. You can join us here. Our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. The question here is America too big? And the answer is clearly, yeah, absolutely.
Well, not only is that the question, but the final sentence on what they have on the Libertarian Institute says that as a result, if economic integration prevails, the optimal country size might even be a city-state.
Right. I believe that. I absolutely believe that. The toll-free number again, 855-450-FREE. We'll dig a little deeper here in moments. Also, you can take control of the airwaves. Coming up, Baltimore has banned replica guns now, and the founder of the Libertarian Party has a few words of wisdom to share. We'll share all of that with you if we get the chance, but your calls come first, so dial on in and join us here. Is the United States too big? 855-450-FREE.
Today, how to incorporate your business in just 10 minutes so you won't lose everything if you get sued. Step 1, stop putting it off. If you're not incorporated and someone sues your business tomorrow, it's not just your business at risk. You can lose everything: your home, your car, even your life savings. Step 2, call the following number for a free 10-minute incorporation guide from Incorporate.com. 1-800-945-1063. They don't provide legal or financial advice. They just make incorporating quick and easy. So you can incorporate or form an LLC in just 10 minutes. That number again is 1-800-945-1063. Step 3, congratulate yourself. By taking just 10 minutes to incorporate your business or form an LLC, you protected your home, your car, and your life savings. And that is how you incorporate your business in just 10 minutes. But hurry while they're still giving away these 10-minute incorporation guides for free. Call 1-800-945-1063. That's 1-800-945-1063.
Winter has just begun, and are you already tired of being cold? How would you like to never be cold again? This is Dale with Fortress Clothing, and I'm here to tell you, you will never be cold again with Fortress. If you're tired of freezing your butt off, elk hunting, sitting in a tree stand deer hunting, winter camping, fishing, ice fishing, no longer fear the cold. If you snowmobile, ski, snowboard, get Fortress. Sledding with the kids, shoveling the walks, shopping, or if you or your spouse get cold feet at home, get Fortress. If you're stuck outside working in the cold or find yourself in an emergency situation, get our winter bug out bag and you will never be cold again. Fortress is the answer, so quit complaining and go to fortressclothing.com. It's a mid-layer garment that goes with anything you want to wear. Enter coupon code RADIO and get 20% off any item. Go now while we still have inventory. fortressclothing.com.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. DVD, books, music, instruments, periodicals, computers, software, electronics, photo, cell phones, office products, home and garden, bed and bath, furniture, kitchen, pet supplies, automotive, hardware, apparel, shoes, jewelry, grocery, healthcare, sports and outdoors, toys, games, used, and more. It's a department store at your fingertips. Shop.freetalklive.com. Get all your shopping done, get a great deal, and a portion of your purchase goes to benefit Free Talk Live when you enter Amazon via shop.freetalklive.com.
This is your Robertson Roberts Brokerage Daily Precious Metals Update. In early trading Wednesday, gold is $1 lower at $1,228 per ounce. Silver is 12 cents lower at $17.02 per ounce. Bitcoin is trading at $731 US. Robertson Roberts Brokerage has been helping clients buy and sell gold and silver for nearly 40 years. We can help you. Call us today at 800-874-9760 or visit us online at rrbi.co.
Do you love Twitter? Make sure you favorite the LRN.FM Twitter account so you can receive our tweets at twitter.lrn.fm. That's twitter.lrn.fm.
It's Free Talk Live. You can bring up anything you want here. Our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Tonight, it's Ian.
And Darryl.
We're discussing the optimum size for a nation-state. Of course, I would say the optimum size is 0. There should be no nation-state. But
one
nation-state?
No, one person.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go. But can you define one person as a nation?
Sure.
I don't know about that. I think we'll have to look up that definition here in a moment. But anyway, there is a nation called Mexico at the moment. It's a pretty big one, but it's going to be the host to an Acapulco coming up in February.
I thought they seceded.
The Anarchapulco folks? No,
Yeah.
I don't think there's enough of them there yet. I don't know if they're ever going to have enough folks to do that down there. But they claim that it's a pretty free place. We'll find out more because Mark and I are going to be attending Acapulco, or rather Anarchapulco in Acapulco. You can go to anarchapulco.com and learn more about this event that's held annually in beautiful Acapulco, Mexico, where they bring together hundreds of principled anarchists to share ideas on how to live free and escape the clutches of the state and central banks. Their unparalleled lineup of speakers will discuss entrepreneurship, investment, politics, philosophy, health, sustainability, lifestyles, and personal relationships for 4 days among the sun and beaches of a world-class resort. You can learn more about the event, the speakers. Go to anarchapulco.com. It's February 25th through the 28th at the Mundo Imperial Resort and Expo, anarchapulco.com. Now, Darryl, you were sharing with us from the Libertarian Institute.
Yes.
A story about, is America too big? Well, it seems pretty clear to me. There are way too many people in the United States. There is such a diversity of ideas here as far as how things should be run, and people are just fighting over power, and that's all they do. And it is not bringing people together. It is not helping us as a country. And so the best solution is to decentralize, in my opinion, to make 50 states and have 50 countries.
50 might even be too big.
Then 250.
The author of this piece says
1,000.
the optimal size might even be a city-state.
And that's where we're going now here. And you can share your thoughts with us if you want, though. Our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE, or you can Skype in at Skype username LRN.FM.
The piece here now starts looking at things on a broader scale. He says, in fact, global economic integration is proceeding apace. 50 years ago, the World Bank estimated that the global volume of international trade was about 25% of GDP. Today, it's closer to 58%.
So that means more people are trading today than previously.
Correct.
Okay.
Over the same period, global GDP in current dollars has grown from around $2 trillion to over $70 trillion.
And what was the time frame?
50 years.
Wow.
So
huge.
Not only has the volume of international trade gone up in real dollars, it's also gone up in percentage of GDP.
Right.
From 25% of $2 trillion to 58% of $70 trillion.
Now, some people would say, Darryl, that, just as an aside, some people would say, that's bad. We don't want globalization. We don't want people trading with one another around the world. We ought to trade just inside the United States. What would you say to that?
Well, allow me to ask this question. Do you think that people outside of the United States are less deserving of jobs and food and housing and shelter?
No, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. No, I don't think they're less deserving, but we got to take care of our own first.
Okay. Understand that. Yeah. But you want cheap products, correct?
Sure. Well, who doesn't want cheap products?
Right.
But we want to have quality products, too.
And you want,
like American made.
You want a high minimum wage. You can't have a high minimum wage and cheap products at the same time.
Well, we want to have quality products. We want to have American-made products.
Well, American-made doesn't necessarily mean quality.
There's a flag on there. That means it's better.
Right, and the flags are generally made in China. And statistics have shown that as international trade has increased, the living conditions in what most people consider third world countries, such as China, those living conditions have improved greatly over the last 50 years.
Sure. And living conditions in the United States are also very, very good. I mean, over the last 100 years, the U.S. living conditions for the poor here have become absolutely splendid in comparison to the way they used to be. I mean, back in the old days, rich people might have had access to ice. Now everybody has, ice and air conditioning and heating and, some of the most basic things that we take for granted today. Because of the wealth of the United States, even poor people have cell phones, televisions, computers, you name it. There's just so much that we have here. And a lot of that's due to trade. A lot of those products that have made our lives so much better have come from somewhere else.
Right. And allow me to, sort of go back to the whole, we should only buy from here thing.
Because that's a thing with the whole Trump campaign.
Well, that's a thing, and it's been a thing for a while.
Yeah.
You actually got something in the mail today from American Express.
That's right, yeah.
And, they are promoting this whole, shop small thing.
Right,
It's a big, like multinational company saying shop small. And it is kind of funny that they support Small Business Saturday. Like they were the creators of Small Business Saturday. But let me ask the question. If you're going to, quote unquote, shop local, how local do you go?
Good question.
Only within the
city?
Geographic lines of your state? What about, where we live? We're 20 miles from Vermont and 20 miles from Massachusetts.
That's right.
We are closer to Brattleboro than we are to the seacoast of New Hampshire.
That's true. Isn't that more local?
Right. Yeah. So which is more local? Well, something reasons. But then if you're going to say only within the confines of your state, why not the confines of your county? If the confines of your county, why not the confines of your municipality? If that, then why not just your neighborhood?
Yeah.
If you can't get it from your neighborhood, you don't need it. Okay, then sorry, but if you live in New Hampshire, chances are you don't get vodka, you don't get coffee. There's a bunch of stuff that you don't get if you're only going to, quote unquote, buy local.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's something that a lot of people, it makes your life harder, and it's something that a lot of people don't think about. They don't follow things to the logical conclusion.
Well, and it makes, not only does it make your life harder because you can't get everything that you might want or need from the local area, it also costs. Because if you can get something and there's nobody else offering that something in the local area, then they'll charge more for it.
Right.
If they know you can't go to the next state over or the next town over or whatever.
Seafood on the East Coast is a hell of a lot cheaper than seafood in Kansas.
Yes, exactly. So we're going to continue the discussion here. You can join us and bring up whatever's on your mind. But we're talking about the size of countries right now and kind of discussing trade as an aside. The toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. I don't think the whole buy local movement is a bad movement necessarily. I think there's some real benefits that can be accrued by buying locally if the price is right, if the service is good, and it's a good deal. The toll-free number, 855-450-FREE. You can join us here on Free Talk Live.
Paid non-attorney spokesperson Adam Pulaski of the Pulaski Law Firm with principal office in Houston, Texas is the attorney responsible for the content of this ad. This ad is not legal advice, and the choice of a lawyer should not be based solely upon advertisement. Services may not be available in all states. Attention Xarelto users. If you or a loved one took Xarelto and suffered a serious bleeding event, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Xarelto is a popular prescription blood thinner used to prevent blood clots and protect patients from strokes. These serious bleeding events have led to numerous cases of hospitalization and even death. Phone lines are open 24/7. Call 800-261-0937. That's 800-261-0937.
This is Dan Pilla. Do you owe the IRS money you can't pay? Are tax debts crippling you? I've defended people from the IRS for over 30 years. I've helped thousands, and I can help you too. I wrote the book on IRS settlement, and I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a hopeless case. Call 800-34-NO-TAX to finally get free of IRS debt. With the IRS's new programs, there's never been a better time to solve your problem. Call 800-34-NO-TAX. That's 800-34-NO-TAX, or my website, danpilla.com.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends radio show. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgoristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agorist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agorist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any tomfoolery. So go with AgoristHosting.com. And if you want to get your foot in the door with decentralized marketplaces, Agorist Hosting is now offering open bazaar hosting. Go to agoristhosting.com, click on the button that says Get Hosted. Agorist Hosting, that's AGORIST, hosting.com.
Ross Ulbricht was convicted in early 2015 of running the infamous Silk Road Underground Market. The Silk Road was a gift to humanity and helped reduce the harms brought on by drug prohibition. For this good deed, Ross has been sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. Now, an appeal is Ross's only chance, and he needs your support. Please visit freeross.org, where you can contribute via various methods, including Bitcoin. Visit freeross.org. That's freeross.org.
The three most important things you can do for Free Talk Live are: 1, share one episode a week on Facebook or in some other social networking site. 2, buy the things you buy online through shop.freetalklive.com. 3, give $5 a month to the AMP program. It's my firm belief that Free Talk Live's AMP program is the best use of your charitable dollar among liberty-oriented organizations. Support all the organizations you love, but make sure you give $5 a month to AMP at amp.freetalklive.com.
Uncertainty has become the talking point when it comes to financial markets. One thing is becoming certain: safe haven assets. Hard assets are now becoming the choice of informed investors. The most recognized and valued hard asset is gold. The highest performing asset this year is gold. Trust gold to protect and grow your IRA or 401k. Central banks and billionaires are doing the same thing. Choose a more stable asset that has tremendous upside potential. As these uncertain times threaten the markets, your decision to reduce your exposure to these markets before further negative effects to your portfolio would be well timed. Call 1-800-GOLD-IRA to transfer your existing IRA into an actual physical gold and silver IRA. American Bullion is the pioneer of gold IRAs. They handle all the details for you. Call 1-800-GOLD-IRA to get prepared. Start protecting and growing your IRA and 401k before the next crash. American Bullion. 1-800-GOLD-IRA.
If you enjoy LRN.FM, please contribute to your favorite shows via their websites and become an amplifier at amp.lrn.fm. That's amp.lrn.fm.
It is Free Talk Live. You can bring up what you want. Coming up, we'll do more on the question of, is the United States too big? Looking at the idea of decentralization, looking at the optimal size for a state. Of course, I think we would both agree that there should be no coercive states. But regardless, it's an interesting discussion, and we'll continue that here in moments. But first, a quick correction. I just happened to go and pull up the Human Freedom Index. We had gotten into a discussion about this, and you're saying this is different from the Fraser Institute's Economic Freedom Index at freetheworld.com. But you had also said that the Human Freedom Index had New Zealand at the top, and from what I can tell here, and you've also looked on your end as well, 2012 seems to be the most recent set of numbers that they've released in a 2015 or 2016 release. And the 2012 numbers show Hong Kong at number 1, just as Hong Kong is also number 1 on the various economic freedom indexes that we've talked about over the years. Switzerland coming in at number 2. So, yeah, this is definitely the Freedom Index or the Human Freedom Index, because normally on the Economic Freedom Indexes, the number 2 country is Singapore, correct, which is not particularly known for its personal freedoms.
Correct. Yeah, and I looked at the same thing, and if you go back and look at the 2008, the 2010, and I think it was the 2011 numbers that they have way down at the bottom of that, New Zealand is number 2 in those previous rankings.
So there is that. I'm actually trying to just scan through here to see where Singapore ended up on the personal freedom list, just out of curiosity. Oh, number 43. So,
and the United States is 20th.
And the United States is also not doing very hot on the economic freedom rankings. I believe it's hovering at around 15, if I'm recalling correctly, but I don't have that in front of me at the moment. Countries that rank as more free than the United States on this Human Freedom Index ranking over from, it's actually, I guess, a partner study between Cato Institute and Fraser Institute.
Cato, the Fraser Institute, and the Liberalis Institute of Germany.
So U.S. at number 20, Mauritius at number 19. I know I'm butchering that pronunciation. Number 18, Chile. 17, Luxembourg. 16, Malta. 14, the Netherlands. Wait. Okay, there's 2 for 14. That's why there's... So 14, the Netherlands, 14, Iceland, 12, Germany, 12, Austria, 11, Norway, 10, Sweden, 9, the United Kingdom, 8, Ireland, 7, Australia, 6, Canada, 5, New Zealand, 4, Denmark, 3, Finland, 2, Switzerland, and Hong Kong in at number 1. So it's interesting that Hong Kong remains at the top of the charts for both economic... It's been at the economic charts for many years at number 1, and also at the Personal Freedom Index. Oh, and I see they're actually showing the economic freedom scores next to the personal freedom scores here as well.
Yes.
So let's go back to your calls and thoughts here. And some people will find that strange, given that Hong Kong is actually a part of China. But as I understand it, what happened...
They have some autonomy.
Right. What I understand happened was they were so free and so prosperous that when China took them back over in 1997, I believe it was, after the British government had control for, I think it was 100 years, that
somewhere around there.
Yeah, when the Chinese government took it back over, they basically kind of did not lay their hands on it. They didn't touch the golden goose, so to speak. I'm sure some changes have been made, but for the most part, they've retained most of their
right. So
autonomy.
Hong Kong and Macau are semi-autonomous, meaning that they don't necessarily have to get approval from the Chinese central government to do certain things, and there are certain things that don't apply in those places that apply in the rest of China.
It's interesting. That would be one place. It's one place in the world that I actually am curious to visit. I think it would be really an interesting place to go, because ultimately they don't really have any natural resources. All they have is a relative amount of freedom compared to the rest of the world, and it has literally turned a rock a rock island essentially into the most prosperous place on the globe. Let's go to your calls and thoughts. Hopefully we'll be making New Hampshire a competitor to Hong Kong.
We have rocks.
We sure do. And you can't even dig in New Hampshire without hitting rocks, from what I understand. We got Christopher, who's calling from New Hampshire. You're on Free Talk Live. Hello, Christopher.
Hi, Ian and Darryl.
Hey.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about free software. A couple people called in the other day about it, and
sure,
I was just hitting my head with all the different, little things that were just wrong or not quite accurate in terms of people's impressions. So first of all, the guy initially called in about free software didn't quite understand what free software was, and nobody really kind of pointed this out. Okay, so free software is not open source software. Free software is about the user's control and the community's control, and being able to access the code and make modifications to it, add features, fix bugs, things like that.
You can do that with open source, though, right? Like you can fix features.
No. You may be able to do that with open source, but not necessarily, because there's going to be proprietary components in open source software. There often are.
Open source just means that you can see the code. You might not be able to change the code.
True, that might be true too, but that's not even that, because there's I'll give you a great example. NVIDIA graphics NVIDIA graphics drivers might be kind of an example. Okay, although these are actually the stuff they get directly from NVIDIA is proprietary, but nonetheless, you can get an open source NVIDIA graphics driver. Okay,
all right,
and there's a proprietary piece called the firmware, and you can't make any changes to this firmware. There's actually something called digital restrictions in this, which prevent you, even if you had the source code and you could build your own version, you couldn't load it, okay, because of this
because it's locked.
Digital restriction.
Okay, got it.
Right. So, but they still call that open source. Call that open source, and it's not free, but part of it's free software. But
so free. So just to clarify, when I was growing up, and probably you too, because I think we're about the same age. You're here in Keene, and you're one of the guys behind Think Penguin at thinkpenguin.com. So you know a thing or two about privacy and open source and free software. But I remember growing up, and there was something called freeware, and there was something called shareware, and then there was paid software. And
freeware is totally proprietary.
Right, that's what I was going to say. So I don't want to confuse anybody that might remember the term freeware. When you're talking about free software, you're talking about software that can be edited, software that can be, shared, copied, So freeware could be shared and copied, but it was, as you're saying here, most of it was closed source.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and there's it's not. Free, yeah. I mean, this is the thing. There's two different camps and groups of people, and the open source camp is about convenience. Okay, it's convenient to have the code, whereas the free software camp is about being in control of your own devices. So if somebody comes and says free software and they don't really understand what that means, then people are going to think, oh, it's about price. It's not. And you can sell free software. You can make money off of free software. Now, maybe nobody will buy it because they're given the rights to make copies and so on. But
so give me an example of the free software, the stuff you're talking about. Linux, would that be one of them?
No, Linux is not free software. Linux is open source, maybe.
But there's a bunch of different forks of it, right? Like there's a bunch of different variants on it.
Well, Linux is the kernel. It's not actually like, okay, so there's different parts, and Linux is really just the kernel. There's something called, a lot of people in the free software community call it GNU Linux because, well, GNU is another part of what people think of as Linux. But really, the Linux is just the kernel, and Linux
wow, this is more complicated than even I realized. Now, we're getting. I don't want to get down into the weeds, but the kernel is what? Can you describe that in the most basic, understandable
in the terms of a car? Is the kernel the engine, or is it the gas pedal?
It probably would be the engine.
Okay.
Okay.
It's basically, it's kind of like the drivers that make up the system. Without the drivers, nothing works. But at the same time, if you don't have the stuff that's on top of it, it's like, I mean, with just the engine, nothing works either, right? If you don't have, if all you have is an engine. So.
Right. So the various distributions that Ian was talking about. So there's Ubuntu and Lubuntu and GNOME and a bunch of different variants. That's basically, the chassis of the car and the, leather seats.
Yeah, that would be a fair description.
All right, stand by, Christopher. We'll give you a chance to wrap up your thoughts here. Our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. You've got to remember to try to keep the conversation as understandable for the average person as possible, and I hope that we're doing a good job with that. This is Free Talk Live. You can join us.
People who can afford a LASIK procedure sure are lucky. Imagine being able to throw away your contacts and glasses. Imagine waking up tomorrow with 20/20 vision. Too bad everyone can't afford LASIK. Well, guess what? There's a company that agrees with you. TLC Laser Eye Centers is now offering great prices on high-quality LASIK to make it affordable for everyone. That means you get the latest FDA-approved all-laser LASIK technology for less than what others charge. And if you call right now, we'll schedule a free appointment so you can discover if LASIK is right for you. Results may vary. Call 1-800-929-5733. Even better, if you're one of the first 100 callers, ask about an extra $400 off your all-laser LASIK procedure. That's $200 off per eye. We've already performed over 2 million procedures. Let us help you. Discover how you can get the quality LASIK experience you deserve for less than what others charge. For your free appointment, call 1-800-929-5733. 1-800-929-5733.
Have you checked your Google search results lately? Search results are usually the first impression that people form of you or your business. So make sure that they create a positive impression with ReputationDefender.com. What the internet says about you can have a big impact on your life and your livelihood, even if it's not true. Fortunately, you can now control how you look online and in online search results with ReputationDefender.com. Call 800-831-0771 now. That's 800-831-0771 for your free reputation analysis. If you have negative material from an ex-employee, upset patient, or former client, newspaper article, legal issue, social media, or other source showing up in your search results, you can combat it with ReputationDefender.com. Our dedicated experts in patented technology can help make your online search results look their best. Call 800-831-0771 to learn more. 800-831-0771. That's 800-831-0771. Or visit ReputationDefender.com.
Amid the catastrophic economic crisis spurred by Tuesday's release of This Christmas, the new holiday-themed album by John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John, economic experts told reporters today the Christmas CD has quickly plunged the nation into a double-dip recession.
When investors learned that one-time screen couple John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John had reunited after 35 years for an album of timeless Christmas classics, investors had no choice but to pull money from markets immediately. We were already on shaky ground with the collapse of the U.S. subprime mortgage market and the reversal financial crisis in Europe, but consumer confidence plummeted after Americans saw the new album with a picture of Travolta and Olivia Newton-John holding cups of hot cocoa. We believe that when other countries find out the album features a Christmas song that pays tribute to summer nights, we could be looking at a global contagion. This is the blackest day on Wall Street in 2 decades.
This is the Onion News Network.
Did you know you can watch Free Talk Live during our live shows 7 days a week from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern via our studio cams at cam.freetalklive.com? Plus, you can chat with other listeners while you watch, all totally free. Now that our live video stream is hosted by YouTube, our video archives will be online even faster. So be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Listen, watch, and chat all free at cam.freetalklive.com. That's cam.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can put the Liberty Radio Network on the air in your area. Visit broadcast.lrn.fm to learn how. Broadcast.lrn.fm.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can dial in toll-free, bring up what you want. Our number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. With you in studio tonight, it's Ian.
And Darryl.
So we were talking about, is America too big? We're going to get back into that. But Christopher in New Hampshire is on the line, and he's sharing with us his thoughts, observations on the difference between the free software movement and, for instance, the open source software movement, which are not the same thing. And I got to say, I didn't realize that. So
I knew that they weren't the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely some crossover, but I could not tell you exactly, what the difference is.
Well, just to recap here, and I'm sure he'll correct me if we've gotten it wrong again, but the open source software movement, the code can still be proprietary. The software's code can still be proprietary, but it's open for anyone to view, which means that if you copy it, you would be in violation of their purported copyright that they might have on that. Whereas the free software movement is not only can you view the code, but you could also edit the code, you can copy the code, you can change the code, you can make your own offshoots of that code. Christopher, am I right in that recap?
It's a philosophical difference. So it's the one is convenience, the other is convenience. So somebody wants to make a profit, okay? The other is you have to have 100% of the code available, okay? That's what free software is. It means having all of the code, having complete control.
Right, with no limitations, with no licensing limitations, which says you cannot copy. You can read the code, but you can't copy it. That wouldn't be free software.
If you can't copy it, it's not open source, nor is it free software.
Okay.
It's neither. That would be maybe freeware, but, maybe somebody would call it open source if the code was available, but you couldn't copy it. But, it would not be an open source. Neither the open source camp nor the free software camp would call that open source.
Okay, got it.
There's certain licenses that, you would pretty much have to comply with. And within those licenses, it would say that you have to be able to make changes to the code as well.
Okay.
Most of the software out there is free software, as well as you could call it open source, but it's more of a philosophical difference when you use the different terms. Whether you say it's free software or you say it's open source, it's a philosophical difference.
Okay, very good. Was there anything else you wanted to clarify tonight?
Yeah, if I could just make one or two small points too.
Sure.
I'll be really quick. So GIMP, I know you guys are attacking GIMP the other night.
GIMP is an image editor for the Linux operating system.
Right. So GIMP is really great if you know how to use it. The problem is that most of the people who criticize GIMP don't know how to use it, and they haven't been using it very long. I used Photoshop for years, many years before I moved to Linux. And it was a good 2 years before I really was as comfortable with GIMP as I was with Photoshop. And GIMP is much easier to use now that I know how to use it. It's just that nobody who has the skills is spending the time to learn GIMP.
And that's what I had said, last night when we were talking about this. Is the big challenge for the Linux movement is to bring people over.
Yes.
Who have already invested amount of hours or however many hundreds of hours in some other platform, some other operating system, and that's hard to pitch.
I actually have a statistic, and now this is based on my own experience selling Linux to non-technical users. About 50% of customers. So a long time ago, I had a computer repair business. Not that long ago, several years ago, I had a computer repair business. So every one of the users was not that tech savvy. I mean, they were the masses, is what I like to say.
Yeah, these are the people who cannot repair their own computers. Right.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So some maybe could have if they really wanted to, but generally, not.
Right.
So basically, about half the population for which we did repairs eventually would buy one of our Linux systems.
Mm-hmm.
So it is definitely it's definitely not that hard to use, and a good percentage of the population, as Linux stood 6 or 7 years ago, was able to adopt it and not run into any problems. We I think had two returns in 3 or 4 years of sales, and that's a pretty good number as far as numbers.
That is good. Like I said at the time, people who are just using computers for the most basic of purposes, so web browsing, document creation, Linux has that down, and they've made it easy, and they've made the install simple, and they've made connecting to Wi-Fi simple. So they've gotten that, I would say, and that's why you saw what you saw, which was some success.
The hardest problem with Linux is not really the software; it's the hardware that people run into. So once you solve the hardware problem, most people have no problem with it.
Right, and when you're saying that, you mean like adding a graphics card or some other piece of hardware, maybe a network card or a Wi-Fi card or something like that, and Linux doesn't have the drivers built in, like Windows has a huge library of those drivers already built into it. Linux doesn't necessarily have that library, and so sometimes you have to jump through some hoops to load those drivers up.
You actually have more problems with Windows than you do with Linux. But let me explain what I mean by that is, so with Linux, if the hardware is properly supported, if you buy hardware that's properly supported, you're never going to run into a problem where, my hardware doesn't work anymore because I went to upgrade my computer, or I bought a new computer and my printer that I bought 6 months ago now doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
That people run into all the time with Windows. Half of our Linux catalog, the hardware doesn't work on Windows anymore, and we're still selling it. Because on Linux it works great, but on Windows it doesn't work because of the proprietary drivers that are needed. And the manufacturers or the people who design the chipsets don't release updated proprietary drivers for Windows.
Oh yeah, it's annoying. I upgraded to Windows 10 like last year, and it broke one of my cards for my network cards that I had in one of my computers. So I had to go and buy a whole new network card. Whereas the card was working fine. It was just the drivers were incompatible with Windows 10. Annoying. And costly as well.
It basically comes down to perspective, and once you understand, that most people actually can use it. Not everybody. If you have some specialized application, you may not be able to, or it may be more effort to do. But and it's funny because Cody was talking about how he was taught Linux in school, and I actually had 2 different classes. Interestingly enough, one basically basic 101 kind of classes. But the thing is, they teach it. What they're doing is they're saying Linux or they're saying Unix. And what they're really doing is they're teaching system administration skills. It's not desktop Linux. So I'll have a great example. One of my professors actually showed a desktop from like 1992 or something like that, a Linux desktop from 1992, and he called that Linux. It wasn't. It's like saying Windows 3.1 today.
Right.
It's not. That's not Linux. That's Linux in 1991.
Well, and the nice thing about Linux is it's easy to try if somebody wants to. You can get a live CD. You can.
You have to open up.
Go ahead.
Sorry. If you have to open up a terminal, you're probably doing it wrong. Is what it comes down to.
These days is what you're saying. These days.
Yeah.
Sure.
But yet that's the impression that when everybody talks about it, generally people who don't know what they're talking about, that's the impression that they get, and that's wrong. It's because they haven't even begun. They don't even have the most basic understanding of Linux and how to use it and how to go about using it. Or they've tried to do something like install some Windows application, which isn't going to work. But the same thing is true on Windows. You're not going to have Linux. Some Linux applications, yes, they have been built for Windows, but a lot of applications haven't. And if you go and try to run a Windows app,
you can't do that.
Right, and the funny thing is,
it's going to be really hard to install.
Yeah,
and it's
not going to
work. Be either way. It's the same thing, vice versa.
The funny thing is, a lot of people that will try to jump from, say, Windows to Linux are like, all of this crap that worked on my Windows machine don't work on this. Linux is garbage. But yet, if they try jumping from Windows to Mac, they understand, this isn't going to work because this is a Mac and not Windows.
Yeah.
Right. If you buy a Linux system with Linux hardware, that's actually properly supported under Linux, and not just some stupid company that's trying to sell you on Linux because, and it's just they don't really understand what they're doing. Well, it's not going to work. But if you actually buy from Penguin, for example, nothing we sell is not going to work. When you plug something in, it's just going to work. There's no drivers to install. There's nothing to configure. There's no terminal to open up. And that's just because we don't sell hardware that isn't really properly supported in Linux.
Chris, thanks for sharing. Thanks for the informative call. I appreciate it, and thank you again. Toll-free number 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Yeah, I don't have a problem with Linux. I'm just one of those people who's so invested in, Windows. Like, same thing's true with Apple. I mean, I'm not interested in Mac because I don't want to learn. I mean, I probably would be better at Mac because I used them when I was in school, but I'm sure they've changed the operating system quite a bit in the last 20 years.
Yes, they have.
So, yeah, I heard they finally added a second mouse button to Apple computers.
I don't know.
That's what I've heard. I've heard, for the longest time, they used to just have a single mouse button. That was it. This was like the most basic
The last
user
time
experience.
I tried to use an Apple product was I don't know how long ago.
The other thing I don't like about Apple is it's all proprietary. So unless you make a Hackintosh and kind of hack your own together, which you're not really supposed to do, you always pay too much with Apple products because they're the only ones that sell them. The toll-free number here, 855-450-FREE. I'm sure somebody out there is mad about that. It's Free Talk Live.
A funny thing happens when you don't advertise. Nothing. Modern advertisers have been trained to look for trackability in their advertising, and web search ads are great for that. They also help you get the consumer that's looking for products like yours in the moment. But they're expensive, and they do nothing to convince people to try your product segment in the first place. If you're a local advertiser, contact this station. If you can use national exposure, Free Talk Live's on more than 150 stations, and we can help advertisers with little budgets and big ones. Send me an email, mark@freetalklive.com. It's mark@freetalklive.com.
You've said it yourself. We need a healthcare system that focuses on health, not sickness. Health insurance pays for treating sickness but gives you nothing for being healthy. There's a free market healthcare company that gives you freedom from health insurance. They give you a proactive health assessment daily, no charge 24-hour access to doctors. Check them out right now at healthexcellenceselect.com. Any kind of doctor, traditional, integrative, chiropractic, acupuncture, and massage. You'll love the service and price. healthexcellenceselect.com. healthexcellenceselect.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. For years, LRN.FM has had a listen line that you can call and listen to LRN.FM anytime. Now we're taking the idea to a new level with the LRN.FM audio on-demand line. You can call 641-793-9660 anytime and listen to LRN.FM's live feed, and you can listen to a bunch of our original shows on demand. Long-distance fees may apply. Just dial 641-793-9660 and choose from the menu. 641-793-9660.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Keene in the Shire, the Liberty Media capital of the world, this is Darryl W. Perry, host of FPP Radio News for Wednesday, November 16th, 2016. Silver is trading at $17.01 per ounce. Gold is valued at $1,226 per ounce. Bitcoin is trading at 0.33 cents, and the average price of Bitcoin is $738. Antiwar.com reports Secretary of State John Kerry announced a new ceasefire in Yemen on Tuesday following a Monday night meeting with the Shiite Houthi movement. They approved of the ceasefire, as did Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. The announcement came over the explicit objections of the pro-Saudi Hadi government, however, which complained of being cut out of the talks and which opposes the UN-backed peace plan that aims to end the war some 20 months after the initial Saudi invasion. The Saudis are said to have warmed to the plan, and pressure from them is also reportedly forcing President Hadi to temper his objections a bit. Previously, Hadi had rejected the deal out of hand after reports that it would effectively force him into a figurehead role. Though the Obama administration has been trying to sort of shift out of the way, they have been participating in the Saudi invasion from the beginning. Reports on the peace effort suggest President Obama is keen to get some sort of resolution to the conflict on the books before his term ends. For nearly 40 years, Roberts & Roberts Brokerage has been a trusted source for buying and selling precious metals like gold and silver. They also take Bitcoin for precious metal purchases and have permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. Call Roberts & Roberts today for knowledgeable advice on buying and selling precious metals and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760 or visit online at rrbi.co. UPI reports Republicans in Congress unanimously renominated Wisconsin Representative Paul Ryan as Speaker of the House for another 2 years on Tuesday. A revitalized GOP on Capitol Hill made Ryan their official choice for the leadership post, in which he served for a year, taking over for John Boehner in October of 2015. The entire junior chamber will vote on the nomination just after the new year. Ryan ran unopposed and was renominated by unanimous vote on Tuesday. Representative Ryan reinforced his optimism in a press conference on Tuesday, saying, "Welcome to the dawn of a new unified Republican government. This will be a government focused on turning President-elect Trump's victory into real progress for the American people. At the same time, we recognize that the task ahead of us is enormous. If we are going to put our country back on the right track, we have got to be bold and we have to go big." Ryan's interest in maintaining the Speaker's post and propelling Trump's agenda through Congress comes after a campaign in which Ryan did not endorse Trump until June, well after he secured the GOP nomination. Ryan was also critical of Trump for his treatment of a Muslim Gold Star military family presented at the Democratic National Convention, and again after the Access Hollywood audio tape surfaced of Trump making vulgar comments about women from 2005. Cell 411 is a free app for Android and iOS that replaces government-controlled 911. Cell 411 allows you to preset a group of friends or private organization to show up in an emergency. Cell 411 is a nightmare to the state because it proves their so-called services aren't needed. Cell 411, because your friends won't shoot you when you're in trouble. Without the government, who would build the emergency services? You and Cell 411. Get it today at getcell411.com. Reuters reports a measure that would make Denver the first city in the United States to legalize the use of cannabis in venues such as clubs, bars, and restaurants is expected to get enough votes to pass, according to both backers and opponents of the initiative. The announcement comes amid a string of victories for proponents of medical and recreational cannabis use, with voters in California and Massachusetts approving ballot initiatives legalizing recreational use of cannabis last week. The Denver measure will permit private businesses to allow cannabis use by adults in designated areas with certain exceptions. Backers of the initiative said it would make Denver the first city in the country where cannabis enthusiasts can enjoy cannabis socially without fear of arrest. Kevan Kalitbari, a Denver businessman and lead proponent of the measure, said in a statement on Tuesday, "This is a victory for cannabis consumers who, like alcohol consumers, simply want the option to enjoy cannabis in a social setting." While other states have authorized similar plans, Kalitbari said Denver would be the first to actually implement them. He said businesses in the city could start opening their doors to cannabis users as soon as late January. Approval for Denver's initiative was leading in preliminary vote totals from last week's election. While the city's election agency said they would not certify results until next Tuesday, campaigns that supported and opposed the measure both agreed it had passed. This has been FPP Radio News, online at fppradio.com.
McDonald's is now offering bereavement prices, and a sexual predator gets tenure. This is the Onion Week in Review. This Wednesday, Samsung announced the release of its brand new really big television. Representatives for the South Korean electronics manufacturer told reporters at a press conference that the gargantuan of an electronics product boasted a variety of new features, including being super heavy and having a screen that was probably 100 inches wide for all they knew.
We here at Samsung think this new product will appeal to today's consumers who are looking for a television that's really huge. I mean, this thing is built like a Mack truck. You just really have to see it to believe it.
In other news, an important decision is sent up to the company's highest idiot. And an area mother doesn't see why Thai people need to make food so spicy. Today's Onion Review was sponsored by Bamboo Garden, voted the best family-owned Chinese restaurant in Idaho for 5 years running.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
Free
Talk Live, inviting you where you can take control of the airwaves. Bring up anything you want. Our number here is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. We've got Skype, so Skype on in here at username LRN.FM. Tonight, in the studio with you, it's Ian.
And Darryl.
We're going to get back into the discussion that we started in the first hour of the show. Darryl, you had a story that you were sharing with us about... was the United States too big? And also, what is the right size for a country? So let's get back into that because I think there was more to it, right?
There is. And when we got into the economics, you said as an aside, but it's all tied in.
Okay.
And
we're talking about trade barriers.
Right. So let me just go back a little bit. 50 years ago, the World Bank estimated that the global volume of international trade was about 25% of GDP. Today, it's closer to 58%. Over the same period of time, global GDP in current dollars has grown from around $2 trillion to $70 trillion.
That's a huge increase in
around fivefold, even when adjusted for inflation.
Okay.
So over 50 years, global trade has grown from about $500 billion to over $40 trillion, a factor of 12, even when adjusted for inflation. Tariff barriers have fallen considerably. In the UK, beginning in the 19th century, in the United States, beginning in the late 1930s, and in the developing world more recently. While tariff rates are a policy decision and can therefore be undone, a fall in shipping cost represents a permanent exogenous increase in economic integration. David Hummels has noted that freight costs are perhaps more significant than tariffs. The cost of air freight has plummeted since the 1950s. Ocean freight prices have fallen, though not as substantially. Furthermore, even though tariffs can rise in response to policy choices, the nature of the modern economy creates political pressure to keep them low.
Okay.
The optimal market size for modern goods is often infinitely large. Once you're investing the money, or rather once you've invested the money to develop an iPhone, it doesn't make sense to not try to sell it in as many markets as possible. Similarly, for small governments, it doesn't make sense to think that you'll be able to produce an acceptable smartphone competitor to keep Apple out of your country. These two effects put pressure on everyone to keep economic integration ongoing. One key point here is that global economic integration has dramatically increased over the last several decades. The second one is that, given the state of technology, we are unlikely to revert to the relative autocracy, or rather autarky, of a century ago. Political disintegration is happening all over the world. It's not just Brexit, nor the near miss of the Scottish secession of 2014.
By the way, just as an addition here, Barcelona headline from this week: 80,000 gather for the Catalan pro-independence demonstration. So Catalonia, one of the hot spots for secession, but they're saying this is happening all around the globe.
Right, and they even mention the Catalonian referendum. The list of active separatist movements is so large that Wikipedia has to break them up by continent and in some cases by country.
Wow.
Between the decline of colonialism and the disintegration of the Soviet bloc, the number of independent countries has tripled in the last 100 years.
Okay.
We went from less than 50 countries in the world in 1800 to now there are almost 200.
All right, good. That's good news. We need more of that.
These data indicate that there is at least some movement in the direction of efficiency. The benefits of empire are falling as economic integration proceeds. Not only is the optimal country size smaller, political economic forces seem to actually move countries closer to the optimal size, i.e., they cause disintegration.
But it is a brutally slow process. I mean,
it is.
I'd love to just snap my fingers and have secession happen tomorrow, but unfortunately, at least here in the United States, we're probably a ways off from something like that becoming a reality.
Right. Over the course of its history, the United States has grown from its humble origins on the eastern seaboard to encompass a large territory. that territory has rarely gotten smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, the territory has gotten smaller. There have been some places that were territories of the United States that are now independent.
Okay.
The Philippines, for instance, was a territory of the United States for a long time.
No kidding.
Micronesia was a territory of the United States for a long time.
Wow.
So, the United States government has let some of the territories become independent.
Interesting.
But they're not really keen on doing that with
the
others.
states. Or with the states.
Even with Puerto Rico and Guam and American Samoa, they're keeping a tight grip on them.
Well, there's also some people who want Puerto Rico to become a state.
Right. And they're not, moving fast to change the status from territory to anything.
Right. My point is there's a mixed bag as far as what people want for Puerto Rico.
And as you mentioned, there's secessionist, there's the Calexit.
Yes.
The Free Hawaii movement has been going for a long time. But we could do an entire show on what happened with Hawaii. Getting back to the article, the continental United States is not much different than it was in the 1840s. In addition, we have added Alaska and Hawaii as states and several other territories. The Civil War aside, the United States has largely resisted the global trend of political disintegration. If optimal country size is smaller today than it was a century ago, then North American polities should also be smaller than they were a century ago, but they're not. In his book, American Nations, Colin Woodward argues that North America is actually composed of 11 distinct cultures, each dominant in different parts of the continent. Many of our internal political divisions, gun control, death penalty, abortion, welfare, immigration, and many more, may actually reflect these cultural differences. And then there's
I've
a
seen
map.
maps. Yeah, I've seen maps of these things.
Yeah, so there's
like the Southeast, New England,
Yankeedom, New Netherlands, the Midlands, Greater Appalachia, Tidewater, which is like the Mid-Atlantic area, the Deep South, New France.
Is that what is that? Louisiana.
Parts of Louisiana, basically the New Orleans metro, the Spanish Caribbean, El Norte, which is a little bit of New Mexico, a little bit of Arizona, Southern California, and South Texas, and like northern Mexico. Something they call the left coast, which I've also seen called Pacifica. Which is,
California, Oregon, Washington.
Most of California on the west of the mountains.
Yeah. Did they cut out for the state of Jefferson?
No.
No.
And then everything east of the mountains they have as part of the far west with, all of the plains area and the Rockies. Jumping down to the rest of the article.
Rest of the Rockies.
These cultural differences mean we're working at cross purpose.
Hold that thought. Speaking of territories, we got Kyle, and he's calling from Guam. Kyle, you're on Free Talk Live with Ian and Darryl.
Good morning, Kyle.
Yep. 10 a.m., 11 a.m. What time is it there?
11:14.
11:14. All right, almost lunchtime. Go ahead.
Yep, just about. You were talking about territories, and I want to do a little clear up. When you said Micronesia, Micronesia is like a big group of islands here. Guam is technically part of Micronesia, but Guam is in itself a distinct territory. Same with the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. Those are separate from us as well. And then there's Micronesia, which is islands like Chuuk, Palau. Palau is its own country, but then there's something called the Federated States of Micronesia.
Right, and that's what I was referring to. Those, okay. I believe it's 4 islands that make up the Federated States of Micronesia.
Yeah.
Is there an independence movement? Is there an independence movement in Guam of worth speaking about?
There actually is. Yeah, there's a I think they call it a decolonization movement. So there's a registry going on right now. I signed up for it just at this last election. You have to register, and then they're doing I think it's called a plebiscite vote, where you have to kind of prove that you are of the indigenous people to be a part of this vote. So
what will that vote be for? Hang on, Kyle. We'll talk about that coming up here. 855 450 free. This is Free Talk Live.
I'm a U.S. Air Force member stationed overseas, and we have 3 rescued mutts. Stone Phillips was to be euthanized. There were bacteria crawling all over his skin. They called it elephant skin. It was rough, wrinkly, like a Brillo pad. He was in constant misery.
DINOVITE.com.
We started feeding him the Dinovite, and his skin, it's a 180 turnaround. His skin has cleared up. He's not in pain. Stone is in excellent shape today. He runs, stays slim and trim, and follows my husband around like he worships him. I would highly encourage you to get a rescue dog and start him out on Dinovite right from the beginning, and they'll make such a difference in your life. Call 859-428-1000.
859-428-1000.
Or go to Dinovite.com.
DINOVITE.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-615-7709. That's 800-615-7709. 800-615-7709.
Since time began, tyrants have taken aim at personal liberties. Now there's a movie that aims back.
The government has no more right to tell us what to put in our bodies than they have to take our guns or tell us what books we can read.
6 drug police were eaten by bears while raiding a marijuana farm.
On your knees, you dirty hippies! Jesus. On your knees! What's the problem, officer?
Today, many cops who enforce pot laws do so only because it provides them with cushy jobs, good benefits, and a chance to push people around.
I was an undercover narcotics officer. The drug war is nothing but a farce.
The Second Amendment says you gotta keep you and your gat intact.
Guns and Weed, The Road to Freedom. A film by Michael W. Dean and Nima Vadavi.
DVD available now at gunsandweed.com or on Amazon. That's gunsandweed.com. Makes the perfect gift. Remember, that's gunsandweed.com.
The 3 most important things you can do for Free Talk Live are 1. Share 1 episode a week on Facebook or in some other social networking site. 2. Buy the things you buy online through shop.freetalklive.com. 3. Give $5 a month to the AMP program. You likely buy all kinds of things online. Amazon is the largest online retailer. You can get what you need at the same prices with free Super Saver shipping by going to shop.freetalklive.com. Please do your online shopping at shop.freetalklive.com.
Cell 411 is a free app for Android and iOS that replaces government-controlled 911. Cell 411 allows you to preset a group of friends or private organizations to show up at any emergency. Cell 411 is a nightmare for the state because it proves their so-called services aren't needed. Cell 411 has had thousands of installs, and of course it's covered by the BIPCOT no government license. Cell 411 because your friends won't shoot you when you're in trouble. Without the government, who would build the emergency services? You and Cell 411. Get it today at getcell411.com.
You can connect with the Liberty Radio Network via our Facebook page at facebook.lrn.fm. That's facebook.lrn.fm.
Hey, it's Free Talk Live. You can dial in toll-free and bring up what you want. Our number is 855-450-FREE. We're talking about independence in a larger conversation about government sizes, the sizes of nation-states. And looks like the numbers and the statistics are saying smaller is better, maybe even as small as a city-state. We'll talk about more about that. But we ended up discussing independence. We got Kyle on the line in Guam, and that is a protectorate or territory of
a territory
of the United States government taken over, what, after World War II? Kyle?
Yeah, we we were first taken over after the Spanish-American War from the Spanish, and then the Japanese came in about at the beginning of World War II for the U.S. They came in the 1940s, and then Guam gained its independence in 45.
And so are you a native? You were talking about that there's a movement to Guam independence that is requiring people to be a native in order to vote on some sort of independence referendum.
Yeah, I think there's a certain law that says, like, in order for us to vote for it, we need like 70% of the native voters or something. So there's a registry going on, and like people are trying to sign up for it. The first question for it is kind of, I think it's a very open-ended question. It's like, should Guam be able to determine its political status?
Right. So it's going to be very similar to the plebiscite that Puerto Rico had a couple of years ago, to where it's a 2-question vote. So question 1 is, should, fill in the blank territory change its political status? And then the second question is, should fill in the blank territory become a state or become an independent nation?
Okay. Is that what's happening, Kyle?
Yeah. Well, it hasn't reached the ballot yet, but there's been a lot of, stalling to get more people registered. But yeah, that's basically it. I believe the registry. I mean, in the end, whatever we decide. I mean, if we decide that we're going to be independent, I highly doubt that the U.S. is going to just let us go, because Guam is a very, very important base in the Pacific. It's like the first point of attack, basically, that the U.S. has in the Pacific.
Right, and it should be noted that when Puerto Rico a couple of years ago voted somewhat overwhelmingly for statehood, Congress hasn't been too quick to act on that either. For some reason, Congress just does not want to change the status of any of the territories.
Well, now, I mean, just to be fair, if for whatever reason Guam, the people of Guam made enough noise and said, we want to get out of this deal, we're out of here, we're leaving, you guys can have your base. I mean, if you think about it, the U.S. government has a base in Cuba. It's Guantanamo Bay, and they're not part of the Cuban government. It's just a thing that is allowed to be there, basically.
Right, as part of the treaty that ended the Spanish-American War.
So, Kyle, any ear to the ground? What are people saying about this potential vote, independence for Guam?
Guam is probably one of the most pro-U.S. territories you're going to have. We have, I think it's 8 out of 10 adults are like veterans or something like that. Not 8 out of 10, that's probably too high. But like everyone basically knows a veteran in their family. I myself have probably a little over half a dozen veterans.
Is that because when the U.S. military basically took the island over, that a bunch of them retired there and then knocked up the natives or something?
No, not necessarily. It's the Chamorros, the native population. We joined the military like crazy. It's like for you guys, 4th of July is a big holiday in the States. For us, that's kind of like our warm-up. We have 4th of July, and we have on the 21st of July, we have our Liberation Day, when the Americans came back and, saved Guam. So from that, Guam is very loyal to the U.S. because of that. They saved us in the war.
So therefore, you don't really feel like this whole independence movement is going to go anywhere.
It's probably going to wind up going statehood.
If it does anything, it probably would become a state if it changed to anything. I would say
I'm happy to I'm happy to do a trade deal where you guys can become a state and then New Hampshire can become not a state anymore. We can leave the United States because people don't,
and then we don't have to change the flag.
Don't have to change the flag. Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, so let's keep the status quo. 50 states. New Hampshire will bail. You guys can come in. Maybe California can bail, and then Puerto Rico can come in or something like that. But whatever it takes to get us the hell out of here. Hey, Kyle, thanks for the call tonight, man. I certainly appreciate hearing from you all the way out there in almost noontime in Guam. tomorrow, right? I believe it's tomorrow.
Yes, it is tomorrow, and he called us from the future.
That's right. It's amazing. I mean, technology. Toll-free number tonight, 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733.
So, flat earthers, I want you to tell me how that is
please,
possible.
Don't summon them.
Explain time zones to me.
Don't summon them, Darryl.
That's the one thing that I don't understand about the flat Earth is time zones and sunsets and other things that don't work if it's a flat surface.
Okay, then. Let's hope that they don't respond to your question tonight, but they could. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. So let's get back into it, back into the question of, is the U.S. government too big?
Right. So they jump into the mention here about the 11 distinct cultures in North America.
Right. Now, there's been a study they were talking about, and you're going to post this, if you haven't already, I'm sure, on our Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah, we'll get posted on the Facebook and Twitter.
So that way people can see the map for themselves where they break down the different regions.
These cultural differences mean that we're working at cross purposes. Culture might lead directly to differing policy preferences. In addition, political discourse is one of the means by which we raise and lower the status of various groups. If culture varies deeply, it's no surprise that basically everyone is offended by the discourse somewhere in the country. To be sure, there are differences of political opinion within each of the 11 territories defined by Woodward, but that's beside the point. The issue is the cultural assumption that prevail in a nation. In the United States, those assumptions are not widely shared. Regardless of whether you think 11 is the right number or whether you otherwise agree with the map, one has to wonder whether having heated political debates on sensitive topics with fellow Americans who have potentially wildly different cultural assumptions is even productive. We can opt out of these discussions by agreeing to go our separate ways.
Right.
It might seem far-fetched, but California could hold a referendum on secession as soon as 2019.
Yes.
Given what we know about optimal country size, a monolithic America makes less sense today than it did a century ago. What made America into the superpower that it is today is its massive internal free trade area. Now that trade barriers have declined worldwide, this is less of an advantage than ever before.
Let's continue. You can share your thoughts here. Our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. I think some people are starting to wake up to the idea that this whole sticking together thing just doesn't really seem to be working out. And why not go your separate ways? Then you can have more self-determination, more independence, more freedom to choose. It's Free Talk Live.
By now you know that wireless technology like cell phones do in fact pose dangers to the health and privacy of everyone. Block-It Pocket's wide range of products are unmatched in providing the protection you deserve. No scare tactics, just common sense. BlockItPocket.com offers quality American-made options to alleviate and eliminate these invisible dangers. Learn more at BlockItPocket.com or call 888-315-9618. BlockItPocket.com, enhancing health and privacy.
If you or someone you care about loves outdoor adventure, then check out slingbow.com for some unique holiday gift ideas. That's slingbow.com, where we have some innovative new products for the archer, hunter, or bow fishing enthusiast in your family. Now through January, use the promo code HOLIDAY to get free shipping in the U.S. or Canada. And from all of us at Slingbow Industries, have a safe, joyous, and peaceful holiday season.
This is novelist Tom Robbins. When my mother was diagnosed with glaucoma, her conservative Virginia physician told her there was only one treatment that might ease her pain and save her eyesight. That treatment was medical marijuana, which he could not prescribe. I offered to get her some and teach her how to use it effectively, but my father objected because marijuana was against the law. So my mother, who loved to read and walk in nature, was condemned to grow cruelly, unnecessarily blind. Tragedies like this happen all the time, but they don't have to keep happening. To learn more about medical marijuana, call the Marijuana Policy Project at 1-877-JOIN-MPP or visit them on the web at mpp.org.
This is your Robertson Roberts Brokerage Daily Precious Metals Update. In early trading Wednesday, gold is $1 lower at $1,228 per ounce. Silver is 12 cents lower at $17.02 per ounce. Bitcoin is trading at $731 US. Robertson Roberts Brokerage has been helping clients buy and sell gold and silver for nearly 40 years. We can help you. Call us today at 800-874-9760 or visit us online at rrbi.co.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com. You can get emailed announcements and participate in contests via our email updates list. Plus, we have a Twitter account that you can follow and a Facebook page where you can become a fan. So visit news.freetalklive.com to get news about Free Talk Live as soon as it's announced and the way you want it delivered at news.freetalklive.com. That's news.freetalklive.com. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, add yourself to the Shire map at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
While our satellite channel is free to listen to, it's not free for us. You can help us cover our satellite costs with the chip-in on the right side of the page at lrn.fm.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can take control of the airwaves here. Toll-free number 855-450-FREE. Bring up what's on your mind. With you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
And Darryl.
Also, ride-sharing has gone totally free market with Cell 411. Your freedom to choose, it's there now. As a driver, you get to set your own rates. You get to choose what payment methods you'll accept. You truly are finally in control of your own business. It's no longer, you're not a personal, or not personal, but you're not an independent contractor for a big mega corporation. Cell 411 is just a program. You use that program to connect with riders. Riders connect with drivers, and people get where they need to go, get paid how they want to get paid, and get to keep all of what the payment is, which is amazing. Plus, as a rider, you get to select your driver. That's a first. Uber, they just send whoever they want to send. If it's some creepy dude, well, there he is.
Well, chances are creepy dude probably isn't going to keep getting a 5-star rating.
Chances are. I see where you're coming from. But nonetheless, there's some people who might be made uncomfortable by a driver that they otherwise don't have any reason to give a negative review. You know, maybe they drove fine or whatever and were just quiet, or
right.
Who knows. With GetCell411.com, with Cell 411, it's a free app. You as a rider select from whichever driver's response. So you say, hey, I need a ride to this place. If there's enough drivers in the area, more than one may respond to you, and then you decide based on ratings or whatever which
Saw
one
a
to
post
choose.
on Facebook earlier. Somebody in Manchester, in New Hampshire, said that he put up a ride request. Within 5 minutes, he had 3 people respond.
Really? Where was this? Was it on the Cell 411 users group?
I think so.
Okay, I must not have seen that one. That's awesome. Get Cell 411. I mean, it's just getting started. This thing just launched with ride sharing in the last few weeks. Now, Cell 411's been around for a long time. It's been around for more than a year, and in software terms, that's a decent amount of time. They're still developing it. They're still making it better, but originally it was designed to decentralize emergency response services. So, like if you need help with a medical emergency or a fire, or you're pulled over by the police, you can alert your friends and family members with Cell 411. That was the original purpose of the app, but ride-sharing makes it even more of a killer app. You got to get Cell 411. There's no reason not to. It's totally free. Android users, iPhone users, it's available for you. Cell phones, anybody that's got those two operating systems on their cell phone, one of those two operating systems, you'll be able to use Cell 411. So go to getcell411.com. You can also get it from the Apple or Google app stores. That's getcell411.com. So you were telling us, Darryl, about this story, looking at the question of, is America too big? It's pretty clear the answer is an obvious yes, a resounding definitely. And so what do we do about it, and what's next?
So let me back up here. He says, given what we know about optimal country size, and early on he says the optimal size might be a city-state.
Mm-hmm.
So given what we know about optimal city size, a monolithic America makes less sense today than it did a century ago. What made America into its superpower that it is today is the massive internal free trade area. Now that trade barriers have declined worldwide, this is less of an advantage than ever before. It's not all clear that this diminishing advantage outweighs the cost of our divisive politics based on unshared cultural assumptions. To be sure, there may be good reasons not to partition the country. He doesn't get into that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what those would be.
But he says, who knows what it would do to international relations to have 11 mini Americas running around?
Who cares?
Who gets the nukes in a divorce? I can easily partition being a mix, or rather, I can easily see partition being a mixed bag. That's the author, not me.
Okay.
He says, I don't think we should dissolve based solely on sour grapes after one election. That point is much more macro. There are people on all sides of the political divide who have been unhappy for quite some time. We don't actually have to all live together under the same government. We don't have to have political battles that are this divisive. Maybe we should consider our options.
Absolutely. And if you want to comment on that, you're welcome to join us here. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE, 855-450-3733. Now, just looking at the 2016 election results for president, the West Coast, Washington, Oregon, Nevada, California all went for Hillary. Colorado, New Mexico also went for Hillary. The Northeast all went for Hillary as well. New Hampshire, just barely, New Hampshire went for Hillary. It was like by 0.3 or 0.2% or something like that. So it was a neck-and-neck race here. And I would not want to be in a political, I guess, category or alliance with New York State or any of the other New England states personally. I hope that we can avoid that, but it still would probably be better than the United States. Although, please keep New York away. Just keep it far, far away.
Yes.
It's a terrible, terrible place. It's the number 50 out of all the 50 states as far as the freedom rankings are concerned.
By double what California is.
Right. California is number 49, but New York is way, 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 way worse than California as far as freedoms are concerned. So, I definitely want to see this happen. We're huge fans of secession here on Free Talk Live. We've talked a lot about it, and it's just always interesting to watch what's going on around the world, take inspiration from that. Of course, earlier this year, the Brexit passed, where Britain voted to exit the EU. It hasn't happened yet, but supposedly it will happen at some point within the next couple years, so we'll keep an eye on that. Also, Catalonia, mentioned this earlier. The AFP has the report that around 80,000 people rallied in Barcelona Sunday in a show of support for Catalan leaders locked in a tug-of-war with Madrid over independence for their region. According to police, the demonstration aimed in particular at supporting Catalonia's former president, Artur Mas, and the head of its parliament, Carme Forcadell. In November of 2014, they staged a symbolic vote on independence for the wealthy northeastern region in defiance of Spain's central government. Mas is now to stand trial on charges of, quote, serious disobedience and malfeasance, unquote, for which he risks a 10-year ban on holding office. Catalans have centuries-old culture, or a centuries-old culture, with its own language and customs. Demands for autonomy have been fueled by Spain's economic downturn, leading many to resent sending tax money to Madrid to prop up the poorer regions. On October 20th, Spain's Constitutional Court canceled a ban on bullfighting in Catalonia, an issue that became emblematic of the tension. So apparently, Catalonia banned bullfighting, and then the court overturned that. Carles Puigdemont, the current president of Catalonia, has promised he will call a referendum on whether to secede from Spain in September of 2017. And, they 80,000 people in the streets. I mean, can you imagine having a secession movement that strong here in the United States, Darryl?
Oh, I'd love it.
80,000 people. I can't even fathom what it's like to have that many people in some sort of protest. I mean, it's just overwhelming. There's a photo here of this event. Lots of people flying.
If that were happening in New Hampshire, that would be
almost
2.5 times as many people as voted for Gary Johnson in the election this year.
I mean, I can't even imagine. 80,000 people. The city of Concord has 40,000 in it. So, if you were
Manchester has 110, I think?
Something like that. Yeah, 104, 110, somewhere in that range. I mean, I don't even know where 80,000 people would fit. Where you'd have to pack all of the streets. You'd literally have to shut down the downtown of Concord, New Hampshire, if there were going to be that many protesters. You'd have to bus those people in. It would be insane. But regardless, kudos to them. I mean, I don't agree with their ultimate political philosophy. I mean, the people in Catalonia want to be socialists, and they're already in a pretty socialist country, but they still want to do their own version of socialism. They want their, I guess, wealthier version of socialism or whatever it is. So I don't have to agree with the political beliefs of the secessionists to agree that they should have the ability to break away.
Yes.
Now, I realize there may be people in Catalonia who don't agree with the secession, and I understand that's a bummer to be part of the, the minority or whatever of a country or an area that ends up seceding, hopefully they will, that ends up seceding from the larger zone.
Secede from the secession.
Or just move across the border and, go to somewhere that's more like you. The toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE. Like you'd see a lot of people do to California if they would leave. A lot of lefties would move out there. It's Free Talk Live. What do you shop for that you could otherwise buy at Amazon? Pretty much everything, right? Amazon has competitive pricing and they deliver, and that's a big plus. If you could plan ahead in your shopping, would you be interested in saving up to 33%? There's a catch. You have to do your shopping in Bitcoin. But imagine those savings. It's like a huge raise. All you have to do is go to saveitpurse.com. We've saved thousands, and you can too. Plan ahead and save. SaveItPurse.com. Free Talk Live has partnered with Amazon, the largest internet retailer. Imagine a department store category, and Amazon has it. Books, electronics, office products, furniture, jewelry, automotive, toys, clothing, sporting goods, and dozens of other categories. Now you can shop and support Free Talk Live by entering Amazon through our website. Go to shop.freetalklive.com, and Amazon will send us a portion of your purchase. You're going to do the shopping anyway, so remember to enter through our site at shop.freetalklive.com. That's shop.freetalklive.com.
You're fired. According to the Small Business Administration, 75% of small businesses plan to eliminate jobs or reduce workers' hours to part-time. You're fired. According to Gallup, the unemployment rate recently jumped to nearly 9%, and the underemployment rate hit a staggering 17.9%. You're fired. 1 out of 3 young adults and 1 out of 2 recent college graduates are underemployed. Hello, I'm Keith Abel, a pharmacist and a home business entrepreneur. In 2011, I became one of those statistics myself. Instead of looking for another job in corporate America, I joined Dr. Joel Wallach, the Dead Doctors Don't Lie guy. We're creating steady incomes for ourselves and would like to show you how to do the same. If you want to supplement your current income, replace your income, so you don't have to become one of the statistics, then give me a call toll-free at 866-257-3105, 866-257-3105. You're fired. Don't wait till you hear those words. Start creating an extra income today. 866-257-3105.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. Physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
Here's a chance to do a little activism while you're cruising Facebook, Twitter, or Google+. Between the LOL cats, the recipes, the hot girls, and the inspirational sunrise memes, Free Talk Live's post pass by your newsfeed. Like them, comment. It gives us more exposure. If you don't see our posts, click like at facebook.freetalklive.com and then hover over it to click Get Notifications. It's an easy way to spread the ideas of liberty a bit further. I know you're busy, but you can spare that tenth of a calorie it takes to click on something. Facebook.freetalklive.com. For Bitcoin to be ubiquitous, people need to use it. For people to use it, they must have it. How can we get Bitcoin into more hands? Tipping. What if you could include a bonus Bitcoin tip along with your regular tip to a server? What if that Bitcoin tip returned to you if unclaimed after 30 days? An attractive business card Bitcoin tip that's easily claimed, gives instructions on wallets and spending, and returns to the tipper if unused. Tip.freetalklive.com. Tip.freetalklive.com.
Help get LRN.FM into more ears. Visit promote.lrn.fm for a free bumper sticker, flyers, banners, graphics, and more. Promote.lrn.fm.
This is Free Talk Live. You can dial in toll-free and join us here. Our number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. With you tonight, it's Ian.
And Darryl.
We've got all kinds of things to talk about here. We've been discussing, well, secession as sort of the outgrowth of the question of whether or not the United States is too big. There was a story over at the Libertarian Institute asking that question, and the author seemed to determine that, yes, the United States is indeed too big. He wasn't so sure about exactly how the breakup should happen. Should it be 11 different territories that break away?
Who gets the kids?
What do you do with the nuclear weapons? I think that's an interesting question, one that we've never really addressed here. But ultimately, I don't really care. I just want to get out. I don't let the chips fall where they may. I'm not worried about all the scary stories, because when you start talking with people about secession, the first thing that they almost always run to is, well, civil war. We're going to get invaded by the United States government, and they're going to kill their own brothers and sisters, which, of course, has happened in the past, so it's not
right, and that says more about the abusive spouse than it says about you trying to leave.
It sure does. It is an admission that you are deathly afraid of these people, that you inherently understand how violent and how dangerous and how awful the U.S. federal government is, and that you believe that should you turn, in any way against them mentally, that they will try to crush you. That if you try to leave their organization, that they will extinguish your life. And that is a really interesting admission that people, they realize how dangerous and how scary the U.S. government is. So if we can somehow parlay that fear into action rather than inaction, that would be, I think, a good trick. How we can go about doing that, though, I'm not really sure. So I'm open to ideas. If you want to share them, you're welcome to join us here at 855-450-FREE. I mean, popularity is going to be one factor. If there are enough people who are talking about secession, if secession is being mentioned in the news media, if it's being talked about at the water cooler, at the dinner table, then it's going to be more likely that people will take the idea seriously. And if they feel like they're just part of a very popular movement, they probably will feel less scared about it.
And a lot of people don't want to be first on anything.
Yeah, that's true.
And we've seen that with various legislative stuff to where, state reps will be, well, who's done this before? Because we don't want to be the ones to dip our toe in the water first.
Well, politicians are cowardly anyway, so that's to be expected from them.
Right, but your average voter is also cowardly themselves. Yep. So I really think that with the Scottish vote, even though it didn't wind up going in favor of Scottish independence, the fact that it happened, and the fact that earlier this year there was the Brexit vote, and the fact that people in California are talking about a secession vote there, it's really going to wind up getting it mentioned more in the news in kind of a not-so-scary manner. Well,
I think that if it becomes popular enough, then it becomes it If it seems like a popular movement to people, then it will seem less likely that the U.S. government will go in with tanks and bombs and, destruction. That's not to say they couldn't. If they wanted to, they could certainly do some damage.
Right, but let's just look at cannabis
but before we go on, it'll be hard to convince people in the U.S. military to attack their own family members, because that's ultimately what they would have to do, especially if a state like the size of California seceded. I mean, everybody's got to have some relative living in California. Sorry.
Well, one, not everybody has a relative in California. And two, if you just wind up, getting people from the other side of the country to go invade, just look at the Kent State thing 40 some odd years ago.
Yeah, but shooting a few college students is different than invading an entire state of people.
True. But, we can just look at things that the military has done on U.S. soil to show that they will follow orders.
They'll find the troops who will follow those orders. There's no doubt about that.
But, let's look at cannabis for a moment. 4 years ago, when Colorado and Washington were the first states to vote on, taxing and regulating cannabis, the talk was, oh no, the sky is going to fall and blah, blah, blah. And now, this year, 4 more states
huge,
voted to tax and regulate cannabis.
Including California, which is a tremendous population.
So that doubled. So 4 years ago, 2 states did it.
Right.
2 years ago, another 2 states.
Oregon and Alaska.
Yes.
Yep.
This year, 4 states. So
Massachusetts, Maine. Was it Nevada and California?
Yes.
Okay.
And then several states wound up voting to authorize medicinal cannabis.
We're now over half of the states with medicinal.
Yes.
Yep.
So, with that, we've just seen this, exponential growth of, it's not so scary.
Right.
And, maybe in a couple of years, let's say 2019, California winds up voting to leave the union. And then couple years later, some other state does it, and then another state, and then, the U.S. military's not invading everywhere.
And they don't really have the resources to do that, do they? I mean, they're spread
so thin in 150-something nations around the world.
Yep, totally agree. All right, so let's see. Toll-free number tonight, if you want to join us here, 855-450-FREE, 855-450-3733. I've got kind of a related story here since we're talking about leaving places. There's a story that actually, curiously, Mark posted online this week, which I thought was funny because he's kind of got the leave the country bug, so to speak.
Yeah, and I don't know if he's spoken on this on the air, but he's talked openly before about I want to go seasteading, or I want to go this place or that place. He's got this weird fascination with Pitcairn Island because
that's his most recent thing.
There's only 50 people that live there or something. Right. So he's got this weird fantasy that if he can find 20 other people to show up, they can just kick everybody out.
I think he says he wants to buy people out. He wants to offer them bribes to leave the island.
Yeah, that's basically kicking everybody out.
Well, I mean, kicking everyone out suggests that you're using force. He's talking about using persuasion to get people to leave.
He's going to make them an offer that they can't refuse.
Well, I mean, look, I think that his plan is silly, and I hope that if that's what he wants to do with his life, that
he wants to become a British citizen. That's the weirdest thing about this. Pitcairn is a British dependency.
Mm-hmm.
So to move there and wind up, eventually getting citizenship to where you can vote yourself, ruler of the island, you have to become a British citizen. So he wants to go and bend the knee to the Queen.
He also said something about they're giving away land to anyone who will come and live there, anyone who will come and build a house there. That's probably an indicator of how difficult it is for people to live here.
Right, because it's in the middle of the ocean.
Right. There's apparently a ship. I took a brief look at it. There's apparently a ship that some sort of cargo ship that comes there 4 times a year, and that's it. That's where
4 whole times a year.
Yeah. So if you want to leave the island, that's how you have to get off the island. If you want to order some
or start
stuff,
swimming.
Yeah. If you want to order things from Amazon or whatever, it's going to show up.
So what you're saying?
4 times a year.
SaveItPurse.com doesn't work that well on Pitcairn Island.
Yeah, probably not so great. I suspect the internet is not very good. Look, if that's what you're into though, is living out in the wilderness or living on an island in the middle of nowhere, then God bless you. I just don't think that it's going to be an attractive thing to many people, although you would not need many to, in theory, take the island over.
Right, but how many people have signed up for the whole mission to Mars thing?
I don't know. Isn't there a movie?
Well, there was a movie.
Right.
But also, I forget if it was Jeff Bezos or one of these other, ultra billionaire guys was like, we're going to select people to go to Mars and start a colony. And there were like tens of thousands of people that signed up of, send me on a one-way trip to this red planet.
Right.
Where I'd go and die.
What's that have to do with Pitcairn?
You've got a bunch of idiots that are willing to sign up for a one-way trip to death.
So you're saying it might not be as hard as I think it will be for Mark to recruit people into this plan.
You might wind up finding a bunch of people that sign up for it, but how many go through with the one-way trip to death is going to be a different question.
I think he's having a midlife crisis personally.
He's been having a midlife crisis ever since I've known him.
Pretty much, yeah. So anyway, he's got himself
Mark.
He's got himself I don't know if we were allowed to talk about this, but he didn't tell us not to, so he's got himself a boat now, and
he's talked about the boat.
He's talked about the boat,
like the Sovereign Military Order of Mark or something.
And he has it in his mind that he wants to take it down to the Pitcairn Islands to check the place out, which is going to be a long
It's going to be a long journey from Florida to the Panama Canal that would get him to the Pacific Ocean for a really long journey to the middle of nowhere in the Pacific, and he would get lost.
Hopefully we'll see him again at some point. He's not done quite yet with his stint here on Free Talk Live. We're not sure when he's going to be hitting the ocean. We'll tell you more, though, coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
You want disruption? You got disruption. Cell 411, the world's most disruptive and empowering app, knows you want ride sharing with payment options for cash, Bitcoin, silver, and barter, as well as credit cards. And they know you want more than promises. Cell 411 delivers. The same great emergency management app, now with ride sharing. Freedom to travel is a right. You don't need big business telling you how to do it and taking fees. Go to the App Store now and download Cell 411 and get riding.
If you had one day to teach someone economics, what would you say? We would say that innovation and prosperity requires economic freedom. Visit fee.org/courses and check out Economics in One Day, a crash course in free market economics that you can present to your community. For over 70 years, the Foundation for Economic Education has been a champion of liberty. Start today at no charge by visiting fee.org/courses and learn why economic freedom matters.
We've all heard about blockchain assets like Dogecoin, Ether, and Ripple. Bitcoin isn't the only player in the blockchain game any longer. And for those of us wondering how to get our hands on these digital assets, finally, there's a solution. Shapeshift.io allows you to buy and sell between your digital assets and Bitcoin instantly between your own digital wallets. I've used it with ease. Shapeshift.io. There's no account or email address needed. You send them the crypto you want to sell. They send back the crypto you want to buy. It's that easy. Shapeshift.io.
So you've heard all 3 hours of the latest episode of Free Talk Live, and you're still hungry for liberty-oriented audio content? Did you know that we have another 24/7 audio stream at LRN.FM? The Liberty Radio Network airs the latest episodes of some of the best liberty-oriented podcasts on the internet around the clock. In addition to recorded content, you'll also hear live shows like Free Talk Live, originating from our Keene, New Hampshire studio. So listen anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Keene in the Shire, the Liberty Media capital of the world, this is Darryl W. Perry, host of FPP Radio News for Wednesday, November 16th, 2016. Silver is trading at $17.01 per ounce. Gold is valued at $1,226 per ounce. Bitcoin is trading at 0.33 cents, and the average price of Bitcoin is $738. Antiwar.com reports Secretary of State John Kerry announced a new ceasefire in Yemen on Tuesday following a Monday night meeting with the Shiite Houthi movement. They approved of the ceasefire, as did Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. The announcement came over the explicit objections of the pro-Saudi Hadi government, however, which complained of being cut out of the talks and which opposes the UN-backed peace plan that aims to end the war some 20 months after the initial Saudi invasion. The Saudis are said to have warmed to the plan, and pressure from them is also reportedly forcing President Hadi to temper his objections a bit. Previously, Hadi had rejected the deal out of hand after reports that it would effectively force him into a figurehead role. Though the Obama administration has been trying to sort of shift out of the way, they have been participating in the Saudi invasion from the beginning. Reports on the peace effort suggest President Obama is keen to get some sort of resolution to the conflict on the books before his term ends. For nearly 40 years, Roberts & Roberts Brokerage has been a trusted source for buying and selling precious metals like gold and silver. They also take Bitcoin for precious metal purchases and have permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. Call Roberts & Roberts today for knowledgeable advice on buying and selling precious metals and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760 or visit online at rrbi.co. UPI reports Republicans in Congress unanimously renominated Wisconsin Representative Paul Ryan as Speaker of the House for another 2 years on Tuesday. A revitalized GOP on Capitol Hill made Ryan their official choice for the leadership post, in which he served for a year, taking over for John Boehner in October of 2015. The entire junior chamber will vote on the nomination just after the new year. Ryan ran unopposed and was renominated by unanimous vote on Tuesday. Representative Ryan reinforced his optimism in a press conference on Tuesday, saying, "Welcome to the dawn of a new unified Republican government. This will be a government focused on turning President-elect Trump's victory into real progress for the American people. At the same time, we recognize that the task ahead of us is enormous. If we are going to put our country back on the right track, we have got to be bold and we have to go big." Ryan's interest in maintaining the Speaker's post and propelling Trump's agenda through Congress comes after a campaign in which Ryan did not endorse Trump until June, well after he secured the GOP nomination. Ryan was also critical of Trump for his treatment of a Muslim Gold Star military family presented at the Democratic National Convention, and again after the Access Hollywood audio tape surfaced of Trump making vulgar comments about women from 2005. Cell 411 is a free app for Android and iOS that replaces government-controlled 911. Cell 411 allows you to preset a group of friends or private organization to show up in an emergency. Cell 411 is a nightmare to the state because it proves their so-called services aren't needed. Cell 411, because your friends won't shoot you when you're in trouble. Without the government, who would build the emergency services? You and Cell 411. Get it today at getcell411.com. Reuters reports a measure that would make Denver the first city in the United States to legalize the use of cannabis in venues such as clubs, bars, and restaurants is expected to get enough votes to pass, according to both backers and opponents of the initiative. The announcement comes amid a string of victories for proponents of medical and recreational cannabis use, with voters in California and Massachusetts approving ballot initiatives legalizing recreational use of cannabis last week. The Denver measure will permit private businesses to allow cannabis use by adults in designated areas with certain exceptions. Backers of the initiative said it would make Denver the first city in the country where cannabis enthusiasts can enjoy cannabis socially without fear of arrest. Kevan Khalidbari, a Denver businessman and lead proponent of the measure, said in a statement on Tuesday, "This is a victory for cannabis consumers who, like alcohol consumers, simply want the option to enjoy cannabis in a social setting." While other states have authorized similar plans, Khalidbari said Denver would be the first to actually implement them. He said businesses in the city could start opening their doors to cannabis users as soon as late January. Approval for Denver's initiative was leading in preliminary vote totals from last week's election. While the city's election agency said they would not certify results until next Tuesday, campaigns that supported and opposed the measure both agreed it had passed. This has been FPP Radio News, online at fppradio.com.
On June 4th, 1919, a group of bold, passionate men took it upon themselves to pass the Women's Suffrage Act, finally granting women the right to vote that they were too frail and helpless to achieve on their own. Having long watched women struggle to stand up for their right to choose elected officials, the strong and capable men decided to intercede and aid their weak female counterparts. And on June 6, 1972, David Bowie's release of his concept album, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust, kickstarted the glam rock genre and led to such spin-off trends as glam medicine, glam sports, and glamcatecture, all culminating in the 1976 presidential glam election. And that was what happened this week in history. In the words of French King John II, history will forever remember the great names of Alexander and Napoleon and Washington. But what about me, John II of France? I did stuff too.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. We're launching into the third hour of the program. You can take control of these airwaves here. Our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733 as we launch into the third hour of the program. With you here tonight, you've got Ian.
And Darryl.
We got a lot that we can talk about here this evening. Baltimore apparently has banned replica guns. And maybe if we get the chance, a letter from the founder of the Libertarian Party about their loss of principles. But also, we were just talking about the idea of leaving the United States, because we were discussing earlier independence, various different independence movements, secession, the states leaving from the United States. And some people just want to leave the United States entirely, as was written over at wweek.com, Willamette Week. Walker McMurdo is the author. And he writes, like many Portlanders, I'm at the point in my day where the shock of the Trump upset has begun to turn into a hellish ambivalence of, I should have seen this coming, now what? And a kind of omnipresent mental white noise. Like many Portlanders, my Facebook feed is full of people grimly reposting that dumb story about the Canadian immigration website crashing. Like many Portlanders, I don't really know what to do. But I know what not to do. Move to New Zealand. In 2004, when I was 14 years old, my family, my mother, stepfather, a New Zealand citizen, my little brother, and I relocated to New Zealand. This happened for a bundle of reasons, but one of them bears directly on today's news, a Republican presidency, specifically the Iraq War. Remember that wacky incursion? By 2004, the Iraq War was in the middle of its degeneration into a sectarian bloodbath, and there were rumors that the draft might be reinstated to combat the worsening situation overseas. My mother was scared S-less of having her teenage kids getting drafted, so we relocated halfway across the world. And you could understand why a mother in that circumstance would see that as a solution. However, as he points out, he lived in New Zealand until 2014, attending both high school and college in a decent little city called Dunedin. It had its ups, meaning meeting my wife and many good friends, cheap education, and health care. College, he says, was about a quarter of what it costs in the United States, and he's talking about law school. He says its downs, and its downs, more on those in a second. But living in New Zealand certainly did not make our lives any easier. The vast majority of the, that's it, we're leaving, people are expressing grief and outrage at the thought of a Trump presidency. But let me fill you in on what to expect should you decide to make a leap to another country to try to escape. If this sounds like something that you can handle, by all means, embark on your new life in Manitoba, but don't expect a smooth ride. Number one, many people will deeply resent you for being American. You didn't vote for Trump, right? Too effing bad. Congratulations. As an American expatriate, you'll be personally involved in every policy decision made by the Trump government and will be required to answer for said decisions as soon as they come up in any conversation with any person. Until Obama was elected at the end of my first year of college, my family and I had to endure regular interrogations about our personal moral responsibility for the Iraq War and every other crappy thing the Bush administration did for the prior 8 years. No matter if your family is comprised of dyed-in-the-wool Democrats or that New Zealand faces many of the same social problems that the United States does, and God help you if we bring those up, you'll have to answer for every transgression at a moment's notice. I want to go on with this here in a moment, but I think he brings up an interesting point, and that is that, guess what? Other countries have problems too. You just don't know what they are because you don't follow the news feeds from those places. You're not involved intimately in living there, so you don't know the ins and outs of the politics of those places. Guess what? Politicians in other places are liars, thieves, scumbags, and general, dirtballs. So, you're going to discover that, and then you'll realize you've just basically left one terrible place and gone to another one that's terrible in different ways or in some similar ways. Anyway, he goes on to say that be prepared to have every personal belief of yours dismissed with, that's just because you're American. Prepared to have an acquaintance. Be prepared to have an acquaintance 30 years your senior greet you with, quote, so, who have you bombed today? Unquote. Be prepared for unprompted scoldings from your morally superior hosts about decisions that you neither agree with nor had anything to do with. So, collectivism is alive and well outside of the United States. I mean, it's bad enough.
It's bad in the United States, too.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. You're not going to get away from that. And, at least in the United States, people will not necessarily know which political party that you belong to. Over in the rest of the world, it's like, you're just all from the United States. Or at least that was his experience. Maybe I'm sure there are individuals who do understand that there are individuals out there, but his experience is what it is. And he says, and don't prepare for any of that to end once a Democratic president gets elected. Get ready for the sanctimony to hit overdrive when they find out your liberal president is sanctioning drone strikes in the Middle East. You're responsible for that, too. We'll go on with point number 2. That was point number 1. That is that many people will deeply resent you for being American. We'll give you point number 2 coming up here in moments. Gamma Blast is on the line first, though. Listening in Illinois, you're on Free Talk Live. Actually, you're watching us on YouTube. Go ahead, Gamma Blast.
I just want to talk about how much I am thoroughly enjoying these videos and celebrities and the media right after the election, how they react to the Trump victory, the outrage, the crying. I've probably watched, I think, over 30 hours alone on YouTube of different videos of just everybody reacting, their tweets and people commentary on the people reacting and them reacting to the reaction.
Is that what they call meta? Is that meta?
Meta?
I don't know. I've heard this term being used. It's like something that's sort of self-referential or whatever.
Meta.
Yeah, meta. People reacting to people reacting. Is that kind of meta?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not into those in particular. Just these people, the ones on the left reacting to Trump's victory. I find it very enjoyable for some reason. I don't know why.
Would that be Schadenfreude, taking pleasure in other people's pain?
Yes.
Yeah, I got to say, I remember one time I looked at one they just stopped right on the face, and there was so much hurt in the poor lady's face, and my empathy kicked in for just a second. And I was like, don't you dare feel sorry for these leftist busybodies who want to lord over you in every way in our life. And I would say everybody else, don't feel sorry for those people. If they'd have won, they'd be just trying to control every aspect of your life.
So you've called tonight to explain to us how enamored you are by other people's difficulty and frustration. Was there a favorite video that you had? Was there one that sticks out of the 30 hours worth that you've watched thus far?
I think the most interesting one was, I think her name is Lacey something, Peterson, Lacey.
That name sounds familiar.
They showed a tweet of her like right before the election when, of course, she thought Hillary was going to win. How, okay, no matter who wins the election, we got to come together as a nation. And there's a lot of healing to be done, and let's all come together. And then after she found out Trump won, she tweeted, F you, all you white people, you dumb Americans.
I'm being told
throwing everybody off.
I'm being told by Nathan on Skype that it is a woman named Lacey Green, L-A-C-I
Lacey Green. Yeah.
All right, man. Thanks for the recommendation tonight. I appreciate hearing from you, Gamma Blast. Our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. So going back here to the story here, Willamette Week, reporting on why leaving the United States wasn't a solution for him and his family. He grew up in New Zealand after his mother took his family there out of fear of them being drafted after the Second Iraq War. And he's talking about why that wasn't really that helpful. First of all, he found that many people resent him just simply for being American. Number two, he says it's really hard to move overseas unless you have a lot of money. After my parents' divorce, my single mother built a successful small garden design business basically by herself with no money, and she ran from our modest Minneapolis home. She sold that and the house to finance the move to New Zealand, and they already had a house lined up in New Zealand. About $250,000 should be enough to get you situated, right? Because that's what she got from selling her business and her home, $250,000. That should be a good start.
In some places.
We'll tell you more about that coming up here in moments. 855-450-FREE. What happened? And maybe you moved out of the United States. It's been fantastic for you. You want to tell us your side of the story? This is Free Talk Live.
The following is an incredible, life-changing free offer for anyone with hearing problems who wants to start hearing everything more clearly again. We're now offering free in-home trials of a revolutionary hearing breakthrough called Listen Clear to anyone who calls this special toll-free number now. 1-800-719-2949. Call in the next 10 minutes and you'll also qualify for free shipping and free batteries for life. Listen Clear is precisely designed by top audio engineers. It adjusts to let you find the perfect way to hear everything, wherever you are and whatever you're doing. And Listen Clear is so invisible, people may not even know you're wearing it. And it's so lightweight, you may even forget you're wearing it too. Don't miss this special life-changing opportunity to hear everything more clearly again for free with a 100% free in-home trial, free shipping, and even free batteries for life. For free information, call now. 1-800-719-2949. That's 1-800-719-2949. 1-800-719-2949.
Will the government protect your family from Iran and North Korea's newest weapon, EMP? We buy guns to protect ourselves, home, health, and car insurance for accidents. Maybe you also have food storage. But how would you keep your refrigerator running in a long-term EMP blackout? Using tested military designs, the Solarc EMP-hardened solar generator protects and powers your critical appliances for years without burying items underground or wrapping them in aluminum foil. Unlike other preps, Solarc is used every day to help offset your electric bill automatically. Visit PortableSolarLLC.com to learn how easily expandable the system is. Solarc is the most affordable and powerful solution on the market. The whole system even fits in the back of a pickup or SUV and can install in less than an hour. See for yourself why Solarc beats other off-grid systems at PortableSolarLLC.com. Don't wait for the government. Go to PortableSolarLLC.com to learn why Solarc is energy insurance for your family.
If you're looking for work, or even if you're not, here's an innocent mistake you really want to avoid. Never return calls before listening to your voicemail. Your wireless phone sends calls you didn't answer into voicemail, and it shows you phone numbers for calls you missed. Important. Don't call back callers you missed until you have first listened to your messages. Otherwise, you frustrate people who bothered to leave messages by asking them to repeat a message they just left as your voicemail greeting instructed them to. If you're a job applicant, this alone could be a deal killer. And even if you're not, there are few things you can convey to someone that are as fundamentally maddening as, "I didn't hear you." With money and attention so scarce now, effective communication skills have never been more important. For more tips for job seekers and everyone else, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
LRN.FM is proud to announce our official listening apps for Android and iOS devices. Now you can easily tune into our streams anywhere, anytime on your smartphone or tablet. Just visit apps.lrn.fm or search for LRN.FM in the Android or Apple app stores. Please download, rate us 5 stars, then share the link on your social media, and let your friends and family know how you're listening to LRN.FM. Download it now, free at apps.lrn.fm.
There's no better app for tracking the value of cryptocurrencies than CoinCap. I've had a lot of apps for tracking Bitcoin, but none that's ever been able to track 500 digital assets at once. Their best feature is the Altfolio. I love this thing. You enter how many Bitcoins, Ether, Dash, Doge, or whatever else you have, and it tells you how much your crypto is worth. You can watch yourself get rich. If you have crypto, go right now to coincap.io, or you can use the Apple Store or Google Play to get the app. I love CoinCap. coincap.io.
This is the Liberty Radio Network, broadcasting the latest liberty-oriented audio content 24 hours a day at LRN.FM.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can take control of the airwaves here. The toll-free number, 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. You're mad about the Trump decision? You want to leave the United States? Or maybe you're just sick and tired of the government here in general, and you want to leave the United States. I don't blame you. But some people are saying, or at least one guy over at Willamette Week, WWeek.com, he's saying it wasn't all it was cracked up to be, the whole expatriation thing. Turned out people in New Zealand blamed him and his family for all of the things the American government was doing around the world. And further, he says that it costs a lot of money to move overseas. Now, certainly in a place like New Zealand, you're going to spend more money than you might in, say, Belize, for instance.
Right.
But then again, you also won't have the same living standards in Belize as you will in New Zealand.
Right. New Zealand, you're probably going to have a lot closer of a lifestyle to what you have in the U.S.
Probably closer, but he addresses that coming up here in moments. It'll be closer than Belize.
Yes.
But let's get back to the story here from WWeek.com. You can join us online anytime you want, by the way, over at freetalklive.com. Enjoy all the features on our site. All completely free. Archives that go back for a decade. Go and enjoy at freetalklive.com. He says, so his mother, he moved when he was young and grew up there and went to high school and college in New Zealand. His mother sold her home in Minneapolis, sold her business in order to finance their move. So, she did a smart thing, right? Have some money set aside for this thing. This is a pretty serious thing to move from one part of the world to the other side of it, basically. She socked away $250,000, figuring that'd be enough to get situated at least. Within about 2 years, he writes, we were broke. Good luck getting a job in a country where you don't know a single person to vouch for you, where your experience isn't particularly recognizable, and where you're expected to beat out locals who've been working in the industry for years. Quote, but of course, I'll have a job lined up before I move, Walker. I'm not an idiot. Unquote. She had one of those, a nice spot at the equivalent of a community college. Well, that fell through when we got there, because there are no guarantees in life. After 18 months of soul-crushing unemployment, our family went from being middle class to living paycheck to paycheck. My stepfather becoming a care worker, and remember, his stepfather was a New Zealand citizen.
Yes.
So they even had that inroad, and it was still very, very difficult. My mother bounced from job to job until she landed a scholarship intended to provide enough money for a grad student, not a family of 4. Unless you're independently wealthy, in which case it doesn't matter what you do, your life is awesome. Be prepared for a drastic downgrade in your quality of life. Speaking of which, number 3, expect to badly miss everything you're used to in the United States. Go outside. You feel that damp, chilly Portland November? Imagine it was 10 degrees colder and rainier. Now go inside. Instead of that nice central heating, imagine it's that same November cold, but just as damp, inside, for 10 months of the year. Welcome to Dunedin. Most of New Zealand is freezing effing cold, a creeping, damp, inescapable cold that follows you into your home and penetrates your clothing. You'll be warm maybe 20% of the time. You'll miss being warm dearly. You'll miss decent pizza. You'll miss the rest of your family. You'll miss football. You'll miss HBO. You'll miss Taco Bell. You won't miss health insurance. He says the single-payer system is great, but you'll miss a lot, and that first visit back to the U.S. will feel like jumping 20 years into the future. You'll miss those things so much that you'll jump at the chance to befriend other Americans and Canadians, close enough, he says, with whom you'll build shared cultural bonds of, quote, not understanding why everyone thinks I personally invaded Iraq, unquote. Number 4. You'll become much more patriotic, he says. As soon as that first wave of mundane problems hits, car trouble, groceries, bills, you'll realize your life isn't fundamentally different than it was in the United States, except now you're broke. As soon as you hear people scaremonger about Chinese immigration or complain about how New Zealand's native Maori people get special treatment, you'll realize that these countries mostly have the same problems and that you'll have to fight against them no matter where you are. Although I'll add that the difference being, if you aren't from there, it'll be that much harder to fight against those problems.
Yes.
1, you probably can't even legally vote. 2, if you're any level of active, you'll be noticed, and people will notice the fact that you're not from around there. I mean,
you ain't from these parts, are you?
And it's bad enough moving from Florida to New Hampshire, where there are definitely some people here who don't like what they call flatlanders, and they don't want to have anybody from outside of New Hampshire come in here, even though they themselves have moved here.
The only people I've ever heard use the term flatlanders are people from Vermont.
Well, yeah, like I said, even though some of the very people who don't want us here also moved here themselves in order to have, to make the government bigger, for instance. So for listeners that are new to the show, we moved here as part of a liberty migration that has been going on for over a decade here to New Hampshire. And so there are obviously going to be a certain group of people who just don't want to see new people show up wherever it is that you move to. It'll be that much harder if you don't speak the native language in the place that you've moved, and that you weren't really born there and not really that familiar with the internal politics of what goes on there. So you still have a whole set of problems, but you are even less effective at trying to change those.
There was one of the grouchy neighbors that yelled at one of Renee's friends one time, "Go back where you came from." And he said, "You mean Nelson?"
That's right.
Which is
the town
2 towns over.
Right. So as it turns out, having people constantly tell you that your country sucks while you're cold and damp inside your own apartment during the summer, it will make you realize that it's mostly pretty nice to live in the United States. Number 5, you'll develop a lot of empathy. He says, I can't imagine what it's like to come to the United States as someone in a position not nearly as fortunate as we were when we moved to New Zealand. It's a miracle that we had enough money to afford a house, keep ourselves afloat, while my folks were looking for work. Trying to do this with no money in our pockets or not speaking English is unthinkable. But I know that if it sucked for us, it must be almost unbearable for the people who now face a government that's openly hostile to their existence. So instead of hightailing it out of here, I'm going to stay and try to make the United States livable for those who truly face a hard, dry F of a next 4 years. Just thought that was an interesting perspective from somebody who's moved out of the country and it didn't really work out very well. And I know there are other people who say, hey, move to Acapulco, move to Chile, move to, these libertarian enclaves around the world. But those people are targeting wealthy people. I mean, it's very, very clear that you have to at least have some level of personal wealth and also the ability to sort of work remotely in order to do those jobs. Because you can't move to Acapulco, Mexico and get a waitressing job and, afford to live in the same lifestyle that you're used to in the United States.
Right. And that's the thing. How old was this guy when his family moved? So this wasn't
he was young.
Grown man that decided, I'm going to move to New Zealand. This was a kid who was taken from what he
was
liked
14
because his parents decided they wanted to leave.
He wasn't a kid. He was 14, but
close enough.
Not old enough to have a job in most places.
Right. No, he wasn't old enough to decide, no, Mom and Dad, I'm not going to New Zealand with you.
Exactly.
And he had a bad experience.
He did. But it wasn't just his bad experience. It was his mom and his whole family that had a bad experience.
Right. But did the mom and dad say, oh, this is the absolute worst thing ever, or is he interpreting that on their behalf?
Good question. Toll-free number tonight, 855-450-FREE. If you've moved out of the United States, you want to answer this guy's accusations, 855-450-FREE. You can join us on Free Talk Live.
ProPure water filters, making water great again. Taste and feel the difference with state-of-the-art filter technology. Pro 1 G2.0 and Pro Max filters are independent lab-tested to NSF standards. Choose from Gravity, Countertop, Pitcher, Shower, and Inline filtration products. There's a ProPure for you. Buy risk-free today. Visit your authorized ProPure dealer for details or ProPureUSA.com. That's ProPureUSA.com.
In these uncertain times, it makes sense to have a sustainable backup method to cook food and boil water. If your current plan includes using a fuel-burning stove or cooking over an open fire, then there's a much better way. The Minuteman Rocket Stove is a biomass-burning cooking stove that only requires small quantities of sticks and twigs for fuel. The Minuteman Stove is easy to use, smokeless, portable, powerful, and sustainable. For the finest in survival cooking stoves and fire starters made right here in the USA, go to MinutemanStove.com. That's MinutemanStove.com.
Free Talk Live.
So, yeah, Mark, they did ban all foreign flags from being flown in the event that they are the only flag being flown. But nonetheless, I mean,
it's the flying of a flag?
$50 fine and 30 hours of community service.
That's dumb. This doesn't really even affect.
What do you think? Just the land free?
Most of.
On the second Saturday of every month, the Texas Republic Congress meets in a joint session. To learn how you can attend or become a member of Congress, visit thetexasrepublic.com. And together, we can liberate Texas.
You may already know about the Free Talk Live on-demand phone line at 641-793-9660. Did you know that not only can you listen to Free Talk Live via your phone, you can also leave a message, have it delivered to Free Talk Live's hosts? To leave us your thoughts, just dial 641-793-9660. That's 641-793-9660. Press 2 for Free Talk Live, and then hit 0 to leave your message.
Hi, I'm Derek J. To me, an activist's calling is to actively work to advance a cause. The cause for which I work is personal freedom. I believe my life is best when I engage in voluntary interactions and self-government. I reject the idea that anyone else has a higher claim to my life or my body than I do. I see people who call themselves the government as a threat to my personal freedom. I realize you may feel differently, but my relationship with the people who call themselves the government is completely involuntary. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com.
You can sign up to receive the latest about the Liberty Radio Network via our email updates at updates.lrn.fm. That's updates.lrn.fm.
Free Talk Live, dial toll free, and join us. The number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. We've got Skype, so Skype on in here at username LRN.FM. And with you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
And Darryl.
Entrepreneurship, progress, innovation, you can achieve personal success while helping to create a prosperous society. As Ludwig von Mises said, economics deals with society's fundamental problems. It's the main and proper study of every citizen. Visit fee.org/FTL for free online lessons that are perfect for the classroom or self-study. The course, Economics in One Day, is easy to understand, but it will impart upon you an understanding of economics greater than school ever could. For over 70 years, the Foundation for Economic Education has been providing free resources to teachers and students. You can start today at no charge at fee.org/FTL. That's fee.org/FTL, and you can learn why entrepreneurship matters. fee.org/FTL. So let's change gears, Darryl, go back inside the United States, this time to news in Denver.
Yeah, so we mentioned earlier about the fact that Colorado, they say legalize, they're taxing and regulating cannabis, the sale and the consumption of within the state. One of the things that is currently prohibited is public consumption, or what some people call social use. And, well, that might be changing in Denver, or actually it will be changing in Denver fairly shortly, where there was a ballot initiative. Initiative 300 was on the ballot in Denver last week, and both sides, the opponents and the supporters, are both saying, yep, it's passed. They're just waiting on the election officials to certify those results. But why is this needed? Well, since January of 2014, people over the age of 21 have been able to legally purchase cannabis, but they have not been able to legally consume it in a lot of cases.
They can consume it in their own homes, and that's about it.
In their own homes, but not everybody can consume it in their own home.
Like if there's no smoking apartment, for instance?
No smoking apartment, if the homeowners association has a rule against it, etc. So a lot of people have been consuming cannabis illegally. That includes tourists in addition to residents. But with this new initiative, certain businesses will be allowed to let people bring their own cannabis. A few small localities, this from the Denver Post, have already licensed a small number of cannabis-only clubs, and consumption is also legal, as you mentioned, inside private residences, of course, with the permission of the homeowner. But what is a tourist to do?
Get arrested, apparently.
In comes these cannabis clubs at the bring your own marijuana places. So what they'll allow is anyone over the age of 21 will be allowed to consume certain things indoors. So vape and edibles, other ingestibles can be consumed indoors in a licensed facility. These could include bars, cafes, even yoga studios. Outdoor smoking would be allowed with certain restrictions. But here's a hitch. Applicants for annual or temporary permits would need backing from a single neighborhood group, such as a city-registered neighborhood organization or a business improvement district. Those groups could then set operating conditions in exchange for their support.
So a bar has to go to a neighborhood association to ask permission basically? Like they have to get the
That's
approval?
what it sounds like.
They have to get approval of a nearby neighborhood association in order to ask the government for a license to allow smoking of cannabis.
Yeah, the smoking would only be able to happen outdoors. Vaping and edible would be allowed indoors, but you would only be able to smoke outdoors, and again, only at a licensed place.
Right. So basically the idea being that if there's some sort of conservative neighborhood where they don't like marijuana, that they could tell any kind of bar or club or whatever that's in the area, yeah, you're not allowed to do that here.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. But, I think on the one hand, when I saw this story from, I think it was Reuters, where I first saw this, I was pretty excited okay, finally, people are going to be able to, consume in social settings. But then, once I found, here's what the initiative actually does, it's just another level of bureaucracy and government and control. And it's only going to be a 4-year pilot program.
Yeah, it's frustrating, when you got libertarians moving to Colorado as though it's some sort of mecca for freedom. I mean, you actually went there during your presidential campaign, I believe.
Yes.
And there's no doubt it's cool that you can go into a store and there's a variety of a selection of different cannabis-related products available.
Yes.
That's a neat experience.
Right, you can buy, and the really nice thing about the manufactured edibles, the dose is controlled. Whereas, I could probably call somebody up and say, hey, make me some brownies out of some canna butter, but they're not going to necessarily know what the dose is. But with the brownies that you buy in the stores,
they're tested.
This brownie has 10 milligrams of THC. This brownie has 25.
Right.
And then it allows you to control your dose a little bit more. And that's the thing. A lot of people with edibles, they don't know what their dose is. And 2, they don't realize that it's a delayed effect.
Yeah, it takes like an hour at least, usually.
Right. Sometimes more, sometimes less. And so a lot of people, they'll eat an edible, 15 minutes later, I don't feel anything.
Bad
and then they'll
idea.
eat another edible. 15 minutes later, I still don't feel
that.
anything. And then they eat another edible.
Yeah, bad idea.
And then they're like, oh, wow, I got to grab the grass to make sure I don't fall off of Earth.
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely had experiences where, I mean, I've never done that before, where I've kept eating. Like, I knew that it took some time.
Right.
I remember the first times I ate cannabis, I gave it 3 or 4 hours, and it sometimes took that long.
Right.
Usually these days it doesn't take that long, and I think it has to do with what it's being cooked with or how it's binding with the fats or whatever. As I understand it, the THC is fat soluble.
Yes.
And I don't know exactly how all that works, but I've definitely had different experiences. I remember time I was at a church camp when I was in my late teens, and I had actually ground up some marijuana into pill capsules.
Okay.
And I took a couple of those. I don't think I took more than like 2. And I was at dinner, and so I'd taken them before dinner, and I was used to it being 3 or 4 hours before I'd start to really come up on those pills. But I was coming up by the end of dinner, so like 45 minutes later,
okay,
I'm getting ready to get up from the dinner table, and I was flying high, and I did not know like how to handle that. I wanted to just get out of there as quickly as possible.
I'm having trouble imagining you at church camp, let alone you at church camp while high.
Yep, that happened. Let's go to Sarah. She's in. You're on Free Talk Live. Hello, Sarah.
Yes, I did mention that, that our traumas, what we suffer with, is what our ancestors suffered with.
Huh?
And so that
what?
Yes, in other words, we hear about
our trauma, I think she said. She says that our trauma is what our ancestors suffered with. I want to know more about what you're saying there, because that's an unusual thing to say. It's also an unusual thing for you to call about. So I like, different things from you, Sarah. So thank you for that. We'll get back to it here in moments. With your calls and thoughts, also welcome.
How many of Sarah's ancestors were run over by public transportation?
Toll-free number 855-450-FREE. You can join us in the remaining moments of Free Talk Live coming up.
Think you're fat? You might just be bloated. Find out by calling now for a free trial of New Biotics, the new breakthrough that flattens bloated bellies fast. For a free trial, call 1-800-967-9298. Strict limit of 1 per household.
I used to be plagued by pot belly and constant bloating. After taking New Biotics, my belly flattened and continues to get flatter. My sense of bloating and discomfort is gone.
If you've got a big belly, you might not be fat. You might just be bloated. New Biotics is scientifically formulated with natural ingredients to flatten bloated bellies fast by cleansing pounds of rotting food and toxic sludge from your body. It even combats periodic heartburn and acid reflux. If your belly flattening results are too dramatic, simply reduce use to every other day. Think you might be bloated? See how much flatter New Biotics makes your belly. But hurry, call now for details while we're still giving it away for free. 1-800-967-9298. That's 1-800-967-9298. 1-800-967-9298.
Winter has just begun, and are you already tired of being cold? How would you like to never be cold again? This is Dale with Fortress Clothing, and I'm here to tell you, you will never be cold again with Fortress. If you're tired of freezing your butt off, elk hunting, sitting in a tree stand deer hunting, winter camping, fishing, ice fishing, no longer fear the cold. If you snowmobile, ski, snowboard, get Fortress. Sledding with the kids, shoveling the walks, shopping, or if you or your spouse get cold feet at home, get Fortress. If you're stuck outside working in the cold or find yourself in an emergency situation, get our winter bug out bag and you will never be cold again. Fortress is the answer, so quit complaining and go to fortressclothing.com. It's a mid-layer garment that goes with anything you want to wear. Enter coupon code RADIO and get 20% off any item. Go now while we still have inventory. fortressclothing.com.
Angioprim can unclog blocked arteries and improve blood flow in all parts of your body. Angioprim is oral chelation. Easy, simple, liquid oral chelation. You take it with juice before breakfast and forget about it. Angioprim works fast, unlike old-fashioned chelation that takes hours. Just log on to angioprim.com. That's Angioprim, ANGIOPRIM, angioprim.com. Angioprim users say they have more energy, more strength, more endurance. Increased circulation and blood flow will make all your body parts work better. Log on to angioprim.com angioprim.com to get more information on how you can get started and start feeling better, having fun, and doing more again. Lots more. Talk to a trained AngioPrim consultant. Call AngioPrim toll-free at 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221. Or log on for complete information. Angioprim.com. That's angioprim.com. Find out how AngioPrim can work for you. Get the facts about AngioPrim at angioprim.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and one with just the Edgington Post. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. Has this election season gotten you excited about the Libertarian Party? Has it gotten you mad? Do you want to see more candidates like Gary Johnson? Or do you want to see hardline libertarians? Either way, you don't have to sit on the sidelines and complain. You can make a difference by getting involved. Free Talk Live has, believe it or not, negotiated a free membership for you in the Libertarian Party at lp.org/FTL. This is a limited time offer, so go sign up for your free membership now at lp.org/FTL.
What's up next? Visit the Liberty Radio Network program guide to find out at shows.lrn.fm. That's shows.lrn.fm.
It's Free Talk Live. You bring up what you want. Toll-free number 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. We do have Skype, and you can Skype the show at Skype username lrn.fm. Tonight in studio, it's Ian.
And Darryl.
Don't forget to check out more of Darryl over on his new website, libertylobby.xyz. What is Liberty Lobby?
Liberty Lobby is the lobbyist firm that I created back in June to try to seek to bring in some funds to offset my expenses for going to Concord to lobby for pro-liberty legislation and against anti-liberty legislation.
Isn't that already going on here in New Hampshire? Why is that different from, Liberty?
Not really. So there are a group of people that will show up for gun bills and weed bills, and there's a group that's emerging to show up for school choice.
Right.
But pretty much everything else, there's not a pro-liberty voice speaking to the legislators.
Well, sometimes. I mean, there's the state legislators themselves who are pretty pro-freedom, some of them.
There are some of them, but they're oftentimes in the committee as a member of the committee. You can't testify as a member of the committee if you're sitting, or
they're on their own committee and they can't be there.
Right, or they're serving on a completely different committee, hearing those bills, or they're testifying on something that they introduced instead of something that they think would be good but don't have the time to do.
People also say, hey, I'm too busy, I've got to work, I got to pay the bills. I mean, I try to do activism when I can, but I got to have a job, I got a family to feed. And so those are the kind of people who should be supporting your efforts, because this is the thing that you are doing, and you're doing a good job of it. You've been doing it on your own dime for a few years now here in New Hampshire, and you just figured, hey, maybe somebody values the effort that I'm putting in here, and it wouldn't hurt to ask for a few bucks, and that's what you're doing.
And right now I'm at about 63% of the monthly goal with recurring contributions, trying to bring in $416.67 per month.
Okay.
And I'm bringing in right now about, I think it's 248, somewhere around there.
And you have how many donators? How many people are on board?
I think there's like 15, somewhere between 15 to 20 that are recurring donors.
So if you could snag another 20 recurring donors, you'd be there.
Right.
All right. So go to libertylobby.xyz. You can get behind Darryl's efforts, monthly recurring PayPal subscriptions, Bitcoin, and then check or whatever other options.
Yes.
All right. So go to libertylobby.xyz. As we go back to Sarah, she's calling about her ancestors, saying that she's heard something about ancestors. What was it, Sarah? That they're tortured by this, or you're tortured by the same things that they were. I don't remember exactly what you said.
Right. What happens is that after they were traumatized with, for example, we had bows and arrows and slings and darts for 10,000 years. A lot, it's ingrained in our DNA that we have been shot. So when we hear somebody getting shot to death, movie theater shootings, church shootings, or a police shooting, we go out and tear up the street and sue the city because we know that we're afraid because our ancestors have been shot with flying objects and hurt and killed. But then again, like I said,
is that true though? I mean, is there really anything to the idea that there's this kind of generational memory effect based on the instincts of many past generations?
Scientists have studied this in certain animals, and they have found that there is sort of a learned trauma, if you will,
right?
But how far that winds up going in humans, and I'm not saying that there's not such a thing as learned trauma, but what I am saying is I don't think you can necessarily say that humans are scared of large animals because 10,000 years ago, Grandpa Ugg got gored by a woolly mammoth.
Right, it's still ingrained in our DNA. People have dreams of running away from packs of wolves. And you know that I'm terrified
I have
of
dreams
needles.
of falling off of a cliff. It doesn't mean that anybody in my family ever did.
Well,
I have dreams of if I run down the street and flap my arms, I can fly. It doesn't mean that humans have ever been able to do that.
But you know something? You don't know your ancestry tree, how far back, that 10th, 20th generation, how many of them have fell from a cliff that you don't even know about.
No, that's true.
You
certainly don't know about it. But I don't think that people falling from cliffs makes people more afraid of falling from cliffs. I think generally cliffs are just a pretty scary thing because, you realize you could fall off of a cliff.
Right, but my point is just because you dream something doesn't mean it ever happened in real life ever.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Right, to you, that is. But you don't know your 15,
No.
20
I'm fairly certain that humans have never been able to flap their arms and fly, but I have dreams where I can do that.
Well, anyway,
That's
I'll talk to you
awesome.
about another bit, but I just want to talk about, the people are afraid of getting stabbed with needles where people think. People are terrified. What it is that what they're trying to trace it back to is that our ancestors have been stabbed by real swords and knives.
I don't think so. Now you're really, it was a stretch before, but it's you're really stretching at this point, Sarah. Thanks for the call tonight. I don't think that anybody would ever confuse a needle puncturing one's skin with a sword slashing at someone's belly or slashing arms and legs off.
Well, fans of Game of Thrones might wind up having that fear because one of the characters has a sword called Needle.
Oh, and has it decapitated people?
It's not decapitated people, but Needle has been used to kill people.
It has punctured a few folks.
Oh, it's punctured quite a few folks.
I never really got further into the Game of Thrones. I watched the first 2 episodes, and I was entertained by it. And I know that people love the series. I just never went back to it after that. There's other things for me to watch and to keep my interest. What is it that you like so much about it?
I don't know. Dragons. There's dragons at some point, but I'm just fascinated by the story. Like
it's the drama, right? The human drama.
The drama. There's politics intertwined in with it. There's sex and boobs and
you can get that anywhere though.
You can't, but not with dragons. You can't get dragon sex,
dragons, right? Or dragons having sex. Do they do that?
No,
didn't go that far.
They have not shown the dragons having sex. I don't even know if they've determined what the sex is of the dragons. There are only 3 of them.
Oh,
and I don't think they've ever determined if one.
Do they just live forever, or is it
no?
No.
So the dragons actually wind up, and spoiler on a TV show that's going on its 7th season, and the books have been out, at least one of them, for 20 years.
Okay.
And I get so annoyed when people are like, "You've got to give spoiler warnings before
I think it's
you say
fair.
something."
I think it's fair to do that.
It's been out for long enough.
That doesn't. No, like I said,
if you
I
don't
haven't
know
watched
that
it.
Daenerys Stormborn winds up climbing into a funeral pyre with these dragon eggs, and then she winds up, not being burned, and
Is she
the
a witch?
dragons are hatched. No, she's dragon. She's got dragon blood.
So dragons can't burn. is what you're saying.
Targaryens, right? Her family is the Targaryens.
Yeah.
And Targaryens are supposedly, the blood of the dragon.
Okay.
And real dragons don't burn from fire.
Interesting.
So
I didn't know that.
she climbs in with the dragon eggs that everybody's thinking, oh, they're petrified, they're just stones. But they wind up actually hatching in the funeral pyre. She's not burned, so they call her the Unburnt. And so she's got 3 baby
Does
dragons.
she fly out on one of the dragons?
They're really, really tight. They're smaller than the studio cat when they're hatched. But now they are large enough to where she can ride the dragons. And she's finally got boats to where she's crossing the narrow sea to go reclaim the throne of her father.
Cool, man.
There's eunuchs and
eunuchs, not the kind of operating system, but the kind of people having their balls cut off.
Yes, some of them have both the the frank and the beans removed.
Oh my.
Yeah.
I have been enjoying Westworld. It is another HBO series. Just started this.
Are there eunuchs in Westworld?
Not yet.
Okay.
That's not to say that couldn't happen.
Whorehouses?
Yes, there is a whorehouse in Westworld. It's a great show, all about a theme park full of robots, and they keep getting killed and coming back to life. And there's some very, very existential questions going on there. And
if you like that, watch Black Mirror. I think you would enjoy
series?
Black Mirror. Yes.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow night. Online, in the meantime, you can join us over at freetalklive.com.
Free Press Publications is an independent, alternative media and publishing company founded in June 2009 with the mission of ensuring a free press for the freedom movement and is committed to spreading the message of peace, freedom, love, and liberty. FPP also gives new authors an avenue for publishing freedom-oriented material. FPP brings you daily news and commentary on the website fpp.cc, as well as a daily 5-minute newscast, FPP Radio News, and weekly news, views, and commentary in the FPP Freedom Minute and Peace, Love, Liberty Radio at fppradio.com, and the monthly newspaper FPP News at news.fpp.cc. Find FPP online at fpp.cc. That's fpp.cc, as in Creative Commons.
This is your Robertson Roberts Brokerage Daily Precious Metals Update. In early trading Wednesday, gold is $1 lower at $1,228 per ounce. Silver is 12 cents lower at $17.02 per ounce. Bitcoin is trading at $731 US. Robertson Roberts Brokerage has been helping clients buy and sell gold and silver for nearly 40 years. We can help you. Call us today at 800-874-9760 or visit us online at rrbi.co.
Free Talk Live has partnered with Amazon, the largest internet retailer. Imagine a department store category, and Amazon has it. Books, electronics, office products, furniture, jewelry, automotive, toys, clothing, sporting goods, and dozens of other categories. Now you can shop and support Free Talk Live by entering Amazon through our website. Go to shop.freetalklive.com, and Amazon will send us a portion of your purchase. You're going to do the shopping anyway, so remember to enter through our site at shop.freetalklive.com. That's shop.freetalklive.com.
Cop Block Radio is up next, live after the news on the Liberty Radio Network, LRN.FM.
From Keene in the Shire, the Liberty Media capital of the world, this is Darryl W. Perry, host of FPP Radio News for Wednesday, November 16th, 2016. Silver is trading at $17.01 per ounce. Gold is valued at $1,226 per ounce. Bitcoin is trading at 0.33 cents, and the average price of Bitcoin is $738. AntiWar.com reports Secretary of State John Kerry